to the agenda.
Yeah.
Cindy. Mine's on. Mine's on.
Good to go. Today we'll call this meeting to order, October 17th, 2023. Please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. Morning, everyone. We do have a quorum present with all 5 commissioners in attendance this morning. First item of business today is the approval of the agenda. We do have a couple of amendments to make, commissioners. Under the consent agenda on tab B, item number 7, which is a request to restaff a vacant position in the land use department, needs to be removed. We've got some additional information to come, so that'll probably get pushed back to our next meeting. So if we can remove that. And then under tab C, the action and presentation items, we've added C.2, which is the hospital maintenance expenditures. We did table that at our last meeting. I mistakenly forgot to add that to this agenda. We do need to untable that and act on that accordingly. So with those 2 amendments, if there's no questions, I would entertain a motion to approve as amended.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Richards.
move to adopt the agenda as presented, as amended.
We have a motion to approve by Commissioner Richards. Do we have a second?
I would second that.
Second by Commissioner Toman. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous. Next, under tab A is a public hearing for planning and zoning department. We have got 4 today, beginning with item 1, the approval of resolution 23-10-ZO-01, a zoning map amendment from commercial recreational services, CRS, to mixed residential R2 requested by Kel Jasperson. We've got Megan Toomer, our GIS planner, with us this morning, and I'll hand it over to her. Good morning, Megan.
Good morning, commissioners. First public hearing today, as Chairman West indicated, is his own map amendment. Kel and Yvonne Jasperson owned the 2 pieces of property in their revocable trust. Mr. Jasperson himself is the actual applicant. And the legal descriptions for the property is basically his property, which is 3.56 acres. And then just on the east side of Washington Street, and then within the Jamestown subdivision lots 8 through 16, block 18. Addresses on the property are 525 Washington Street and 562 Washington Street. Current zoning of the property is commercial and recreational services, and the properties are both still both are located within the growth management area. There is existing infrastructure, including a county road, which both properties access off of it. Both properties reside within the Jamestown Rio Vista Water and Sewer District. Rocky Mountain Power provides power, and Dominion Energy also has gas within the area. Green River is the fire responding agency, and there is on-site septic permits as well. Mr. Jasperson is requesting to go from commercial and recreational services to R2. This zone change would be going to a more restrictive zoning district, as it would be going from a commercial zoning district to a residential zone district. As you can see by the zone map amendment, most of the area is actually zoned R2, which is mixed residential, leaving the little bit of CRS that is there is basically where we all know the Green River RV Park is currently at. And little bit better indication of what's on the property. Mr. Jasperson's property is on the right-hand side of that photo, and the vacant lots are on the west side of Washington Street. It was properly posted for public notice by Mr. Jim Zimmerman, and we'll jump right into the review criteria. Kind of hit the high points here, save a little bit of time, hopefully today. The existing topography creates buildable lots. The property on the west, there isn't any existing structures on there other than a few older wash houses. There are no structures other than that on the property. So changing the property to residential would open more buildable lots within the Jamestown subdivision. Criteria number 3, the proposed zoning is compatible with existing or allowable uses of adjacent properties. Again, as was indicated by the zone map that we looked at, most of the properties are already zoned mixed residential within the area. The exception to this is where the Green River RV Park is currently located. And criteria number 4, the proposed zoning demonstrates adequate public facilities, roads, drainage, potable water, sanitary sewer, police and fire protection will exist. Due to the nature of the Jamestown subdivision and just all the development that has taken place within the area, there are already adequate facilities nearby, with the hopes of hopefully a sewer line running out there in the future. Criteria number 5, the amendment shall not adversely affect adjacent properties, communities, or health and safety and welfare of residents of Sweetwater County. Staff did not receive any negative comments on this, and we don't anticipate any negative effects on adjacent properties either. And staff finds that this request conforms with all applicable provisions of the Sweetwater County zoning resolution. We did receive comments from 4 agencies, all indicating that they had no concerns with what was being presented. And at the Planning and Zoning meeting last week on October 11th, the Planning and Zoning Commission voted 3-0 to approve this zone map amendment from commercial and recreational services to mixed residential as requested by Mr. Jasperson. That's all I have. Chairman West and Kale is in the audience today.
Thanks, Megan. Appreciate the background on that. Any questions for staff on this zoning map amendment, commissioners?
I do have a question.
Commissioner Tillman?
Mr. Jasperson. How many homes do you anticipate you could put on those 2 lots additional?
Can you pull that microphone towards you, Mr. Jasperson?
On the
Appreciate that.
west side of Washington Street, there are 9 lots. So potentially there could be 9, but I don't anticipate that. Our next move is to do a replat on those 9 lots and just create 2 building lots. You know, I live on the east side of Washington Street, and I really don't want 9 new neighbors. 2 will suffice. My son is in hopes of building a home on the lot closest to the river. And then we will reserve the piece on the top for you if you want it.
I need another home, definitely.
Sounds like you might have to recall it Jasperson Town rather than Jamestown.
Yeah, there are people that do that already, but it's okay.
Thank you.
Just historically, those properties were used as part of the travel camp when my folks owned it. But when they sold it in the mid-90s, that property has not been used in its commercial capacity since that time. All of those lots on the west side have been maintained as green space, and they still are. The structures that Megan referred to were the old shower house and the old laundry building that still exists on that property. Could potentially be converted to some other use in the future. But other than that, I intend to use it residentially, which is the way it's been used for the past 25 or so years.
Thank you.
Any other questions, commissioners? All right. Thanks very much. This time we will open it up for a public hearing on resolution 2310-001, a zoning map amendment from commercial recreational services, CRS, to mixed residential R2 requested by Kel Jasperson. If there's anyone in the audience or online that would like to speak to this zoning map amendment, now would be the appropriate time. Seeing and hearing none, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. And commissioners, what's your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Richards.
I'd move to approve resolution 23-10-ZO-01 for approval of the zoning map amendment from commercial recreational services to mixed residential R2.
Mr. Chairman, I would second that.
You have a motion to approve by Commissioner Richards. We've got a second by Commissioner Toman. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous. Next up, under the public hearing section is item number 2, approval of resolution 23-10-ZO-02, a zoning map amendment from single family residential R2/SF with lot size overlay of 35 acres to rural residential RR, requested by Amanda Campos Allred. Hand it back to Megan.
All right. Thank you, Chairman West. Amanda Camphouse and Nathan Allred own the property that resides at 38 Hassel Road today. It is a 46.6 acre tract of land, basically located all the way on the west side of Hassel Road. Currently, it's zoned single family residential with a lot size overlay of 35 acres. It is also located within the growth management area. Fire District number 1 is the responding fire agency. Access, of course, is off of Hassel Road, which is County Road 92. 10 Mile provides water out there. Rocky Mountain Power provides power, of course, and there is an on-site septic permit as well. Mandy is requesting the zone map amendment today to go to rural residential, which would allow for accessory structures to be built up to 200% of the gross floor area of the primary residence. She would like to be able to use the large acreage that she has a little bit better for accessory structures. She also has the hope, as her children are getting a little bit older, that she is hoping to do a family exemption, which is per Wyoming state statute allows a family member to basically gift property with no size restrictions on it. And this is also something that zoning can't restrict. Originally, when discussions were had, when Mandy came into our offices, we had discussed of lifting the lot size overlay of 35 acres. There was a little bit more discussion last week with the Planning and Zoning Commission, and we came to the conclusion that it would be best to keep the lot size of 35 acres on there, in keeping with most of the area along Hassel Road does have lot size overlays on there. They range from 35 acres all the way down to 2. This is something Mandy appeared to be okay with at the last meeting. There was no concerns with it on her hand or on her behalf. As if she were to go with the family exemption, the lot size overlay is not something that we can enforce because it's a zoning regulation, basically, and subdivision exemptions are exempt from zoning regulations per state statute. As you can see, everywhere where there's the hashed mark is where existing lot size overlays exist within the area. Just north of the property is Stastinos Ranch, which is all rural residential. So we wouldn't be spot zoning here, even though her property is larger than the minimum district size for rural residential, being 5 acres. She exceeds that on her own, but it's something that staff likes to see to where we're not spot zoning. And there is some other existing zoning within the area. That's something that we look at when considering these zone map amendments. As you can see, there's just a few buildings on the property, basically right at the end of Hassel Road. And we will jump straight into the review criteria. Proposed zoning is suitable for existing topography and creates buildable lots. The going to rural residential would allow Mandy to use her property better and be able to use more of her acreage just a little bit better, and having being able to build structures larger than 100%, which is what the zoning regulations are currently for R2SF. Single family residential right now, moving to rural residential would allow her to basically double the size of the outbuildings and accessory structures in which she would be allowed to have. Criteria number 3, the proposed zoning is compatible with existing allowable uses of adjacent properties. And as was indicated when I discussed the zone map overview there, staff does find that it's compatible with existing allowable uses within the area. And staff also finds that there are already adequate public facilities located on the property already. Criteria number 5, the amendment shall not adversely affect adjacent properties, communities, or the health and safety and welfare of residents within Sweetwater County. Staff did not receive any negative comments on this, and staff does not foresee any negative or adverse effects on adjacent properties as well, especially since we are keeping the lot size overlay on there. And staff does find that this request conforms with all applicable provisions of this Sweetwater County zoning resolution. We did receive 4 comments from agencies. All had no concerns or no issues with that. And at the planning and zoning meeting last week, as I mentioned before, the Planning and Zoning Commission voted to approve this zone map amendment with one change, basically adding the 35 acres to the resolution. So the resolution, as it's being proposed today, is being changed from single family residential with a lot size overlay to rural residential with a lot size 35 acre overlay. So we are proposing to keep that. And that's what the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended to you with a 3-0 vote last week at their meeting. And I do not see Mandy in attendance today. That is all I have, Commissioner West, Chairman West.
Thanks, Megan. Appreciate the explanation on that. Any questions for staff in regards to this zoning map amendment, commissioners? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and open up a public hearing for the approval of resolution 23-10-ZO-02. A zoning map amendment from single family residential R2SF with lot size overlay of 35 acres to rural residential RR, requested by Amanda Campos, Allred. If there's anyone in the audience or online that would like to speak to this zoning map amendment, now would be the appropriate time. Seeing and hearing none, we will go ahead and close the public hearing. And commissioners, what's your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Richards.
move to approve resolution 23-10-ZO-02 for approval of a zoning map amendment from single family residential with lot size overlay of 35 acres to rural residential with a lot size overlay of 35 acres.
Got a motion to approve by Commissioner Richards. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Jones. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous. Moving on to item number 3, we've got the approval of resolution 23-10-ZO-03, a variance for a private access road to be 50 feet wide. And we'll hand it back to Megan.
All right, thank you, Chairman West. In the effort to not repeat myself, this public hearing and the next public hearing are tied together. This public hearing is the variance for the access road, also known as Jackman Access, which is an existing private road that was platted back in the early 90s. When Mr. Feisler came and approached staff about this a few months back, he was wanting to do basically a simple boundary line adjustment. But because his property did not reside within the existing Jackman Ranch subdivision, what he was needing to do was more than just a simple replat or a boundary line adjustment. He was going to need to go through our minor subdivision process because he was going to push his boundary line to basically the south side of the private portion of Jackman Access Road. And in doing so and looking at everything and having a few different discussions with a title company that's within the area, there came concern about the existing private access road and the confusion that was created I don't think it was intentional. I think it was honestly simply an oversight by the county at the time. But because we're in the fashion of trying to clean things up as we go, we are wanting to basically reevaluate this 50-foot private access easement and clean it up and actually tie an easement to the actual location where the property or where the road is at. So if I were to go to the zone map amendment right here, the road is located on both of the orange highlighted parcels. This parcel right here is lot 2 within Jackman Ranch subdivision. And then this parcel right here is proposed lot 1 of the double F subdivision, which is our next public hearing. You can see this black line right here. That's actually where the road exists. Fast forward a little bit. This is the existing Jackman Ranch subdivision. And what I have highlighted in red and blue is where the actual easement was described. So it covers very small portions of the existing access. So what we're proposing today is to clean up the access and actually, because it's located within the growth management area, private roads need to be 60 foot in width. Historically, this private access road has been 50 foot wide. And in staff's attempts, and Mr. Fiesler and all the neighbors within the subdivision are on board with this. We're basically just trying to, I don't want to say correct, but just more accurately describe what's going on in the past so that we don't run into problems in the future, kind of like what happened when, just basically with where we're at today. So sorry, I jumped ahead of myself a little bit. The variances that are being requested here today have to deal with basically the 60-foot wide private access road easement being located within the growth management area. So we're requesting variances from that would allow us to go back to the 50-foot wide private road that the road was to begin in the first place. All while kind of keeping in mind the whole purpose for us doing this is basically just to clean things up for future generations. And so that I don't have to deal with this in 30 years, like a lot of the problems I feel like have come up in the last little bit. So the sections of code which we are requesting this variance from is Sweetwater County Zoning Regulations, Section 4C, 5B4. Basically, it says the property is not subject of a subdivision permit. It is a subject of a subdivision permit, as the next public hearing will be for the double F subdivision. The second section of code in which we're requesting the variance from is Sweetwater County Zoning Regulations, Section 4C, 5B6. Basically saying 60 foot is required for all lots or parcels within the growth management area and for properties which are smaller than 35 acres. And then the last little bit, because we still have the growth management plan and part of that scattered in our zoning resolution, and it still resides in its separate Sweetwater County growth management plan, is also section 6.2.6.5. Again, basically saying private roads need to be 60 foot wide within the growth management area. There are 3 criteria that staff looks at when we are reviewing a variance. The first is what special circumstances or conditions fully described in the commission and board's findings, which are peculiar to the land or buildings for which the variance is sought and do not generally apply to land or buildings within the neighborhood and have not resulted of any act subsequent to the adoption of the zoning resolution. If I were to go back to the aerial here, you can see on lot 2 of Jackman Ranch subdivision, the existing road weaves in and out of structures that have been there since prior to the Jackman Ranch subdivision actually being platted. There's a barn, a few other outbuildings, and of course the house that Susan Nichols currently resides within. 60 foot is not feasible to go between all those buildings. It would actually take up probably about half of her barn right there. So that is one of the peculiar instances that staff was able to narrow down and point out with the help of Kent Felderman when he did his survey of the property and helping us to determine whether we could go with a 60-foot access easement as is required with our stuff, or if a variance was going to be needed. Criteria number 2, for reasons fully set forth in the commissioners and board's findings, the circumstances or conditions that the strict application of these provisions of Sweetwater County zoning resolution would deprive the applicant of a reasonable use of the land or buildings, and the granting of the adjustment is necessary, or the reasonable use thereof is the minimal adjustment that will accomplish said purpose. Again, we are requesting a variance to go from 60 feet to 50 feet. This is keeping with the easement that has been to the Fiesler property since November 3rd of 1986. Another unique portion about this easement is as the easement was drawn up and as it was indicated on the plat, and that's where some of the confusion has come into play, the easement was only ever there for the benefit of the Fiesler property, which was the only property that was outside of the existing Jackman Ranch subdivision. And that's how it was noted on the plat, which has caused confusion talking with a few different title companies in the area. Again, we're just trying to clean things up since we got the opportunity with Mr. Fiesler proposing the double F subdivision. And the third criteria that we review for a variance is the variance in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the zoning resolution and will not be injurious to the neighborhood or otherwise detrimental to the public welfare. All of the neighbors are on board with this. If anything, it's helping all the neighbors within the Jackman Ranch subdivision and the proposed double F subdivision as it's cleaning up and identifying better where the access road is. It's also clarifying who will need to maintain that road. We all know there's a few private roads within the county that there is trouble with who actually has maintenance over these roads. So the easement documents that are being proposed not only clear up the actual location of the road and depicts who will actually be able to, who needs to maintain the road, but also it will clear up who actually is able to use the road as well, trying to be more descriptive and basically clean things up for all the neighbors within the area. We did receive 4 agency comments, all of which didn't have any comments or no comment or concerns with what was being proposed. And at the October 11th, 2023 Planning and Zoning Commission last week, the Planning and Zoning Commission voted to approve the variance for private access road to be 50-foot wide with all of staff conditions. And the conditions which staff put in, you can read in your board packet, basically are making sure that we're tying this public hearing to the next one, saying that the double F subdivision needs to be approved as well, and all documents need to be recorded within the 180 days, basically tying everything together so that we don't miss, because there's what do we've got? 7 different documents that need to be recorded. We're talking about a plat, 3 easements that are clearing up all the access within this area. We're relinquishing the existing easement that's there, so there's no confusion in the future, and also requiring 2 quitclaim deeds to clear up title as well, so that there's no confusion once the final plat for double F has been recorded. I know that was a lot. If you do have questions, I'm here, and also Mr. Fiesler is in the audience as well.
Thanks, Megan. Definitely a lot of work. I think I've followed along with most of that, but if I understood properly, the road will remain as is. That is the variance request, but it'll still go through the Nichols property. Did I understand that right?
Correct. So the road will remain as is. What it's doing is basically, because we're relinquishing the existing easement that was there and putting 3 new easements in place, because we're doing the 3 new easements, we need the variance so that it meets our regulations today, since our regulations state that it needs to be 60 feet for an easement for a private access road. And we're wanting to request the 50-foot easement to basically match what was there existing, just doing it in a cleaned up and better way for future.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. I mean, driving through private property to get to another subdivision. That would drive me nuts, but it sounds like everyone's on board. So my opinion doesn't much matter there. Any other questions for staff, commissioners, or the applicant?
Yes.
Commissioner Toman.
Is there another way you could have an access directly onto a road without going through the private for the new subdivision?
If you were to come across a mile or more of the LM property accessing
Yeah.
off of 191. Which is
That could
not
take several years,
exactly.
maybe centuries.
Any other questions? If not, does the applicant want to say anything or good to go? Sounds good. Well, at this time, we'll go ahead and open up the public hearing. Sure. For approval of resolution 23-10-ZO-03, a variance for a private access road to be 50 feet wide. If there's anyone in the audience or online that would like to speak to this variance request, that would be the appropriate time. Seeing and hearing none, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Commissioners, what's your pleasure?
Chairman,
Commissioner Richards.
move to approve resolution 23-10-ZO-03 for approval of a variance for private access road to be 50 feet wide.
Do you have a motion to approve by Commissioner Richards? Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Jones. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous. Final item under tab A is item number 4. We've got approval of resolution 23-10-ZO-04, the final plat for the Double F subdivision. And we'll hand this one back over to Megan for the final.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, commissioners. Again, don't want to beat a dead horse, so I'll just kind of cover the portions that are a little bit more unique to the Double F subdivision, and I will just jump straight into looking at the plat itself. What's being proposed is just a 2-lot subdivision. I know it sounds like a whole lot, but this is basically the path that we had to lead Mr. Fiesler down, just so that we met all of our regulation requirements. And I do want to give himself and Mr. Kent Felderman from JFC credit. This was a pretty unique one for everybody to be involved in, just because dealing with the access road, there's so much detail in just a super small portion of the road. We've tried our best to not only clean it up, but also provide a picture for people in the future that weren't involved with this meeting and weren't involved in all the research on it, so that they can understand what's happened here today. So the proposed Double F subdivision is basically just a glorified boundary line adjustment that had to go through the minor subdivision process. Nothing will change out there on the existing property other than the south boundary of Fiesler's property is going to move to the south side of the road. All structures and everything are going to be the same. We don't need to worry about any setbacks since these are roughly 10-acre properties. So that was nice. And we've got easements that are cleaning up not only access, but also providing utilities. One of the other things that is being covered within the proposed access easements is they are granting the grantee, so the person that will be using the access easements, also the right to put utilities in there as they see fit. So if gas were to ever make its way out here and made its way back all the way past the county road portion of it, easements wouldn't need to be a thing that would need to be acquired at that time. This is something that is taken care of during this Double F process right now. And well, I don't want to bore anybody with the agency comments. The biggest one that we received, other than the no comments, was from All West, and was more just bringing to everybody's attention the problem with utility easements not being provided, since on the west end of the existing Jackman Ranch subdivision. That's where the county road ends. And there was, the only easements that were there for utilities was as utilities went through. So there was an easement for water, there was an easement for power. There's not an easement for internet or anything like that. So again, something that was taken under consideration when we were reviewing all of this, and Mr. Fiesler was on board, as well as Susan Nichols, which most of the easements run through her property since that's where the access road goes. So all of the comments were addressed from the agency's perspective, and also myself and Mr. Andy Hooton, the Assistant Public Works Director. All of our comments have been addressed and were addressed in a very timely manner by JFC, which we greatly appreciate with this a little bit more detailed subdivision. And at last week's Planning and Zoning meeting, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of the double F subdivision with all of staff recommendations. Basically, those stating that all required documents need to be recorded within the 180 days and that the previous public hearing was approved as well. And that's all I have, Chairman West.
Thanks, Megan. Any questions for staff or the applicant on this final plat, commissioners?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Richards.
I just want to thank Mr. Fiesler for the effort he put into this. I know it's not always easy to do things the right way, and this clearly was not an easy process. And I just want to thank you for the effort you put into it and for working with our land use staff to get all this taken care of.
Well said. Any other comments, questions, commissioners? If not, we will go ahead and open up the final public hearing for the approval of resolution 23-10-0-04. The final plat for the double F subdivision. Once again, if there's anyone in the audience or online that would like to speak to this approval, now would be the appropriate time. Hearing and seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. And commissioners, what's your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Richards.
move to approve resolution 23-10-0-04, the Terry Fiesler final plat double F subdivision.
Do you have a motion to approve by Commissioner Richards? Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Slaughter. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous. Thanks, Mr. Jasperson, Mr. Fiesler, and the Allred family as well. And thank you to Megan and staff for the very detailed explanation on those. Lots of hard work, but we appreciate everything that went into that and look forward to cleaning things up. Next on the agenda, commissioners, is the county resident comments and concerns portion of the agenda. At this time, if there's anyone in the audience or online that would like to address the governing bodies on any issue whatsoever, now would be the appropriate time. Seeing and hearing none, we will take that as a win and move along to tab B. Today, we've got the consent agenda. As mentioned earlier, we did remove item 7 when we amended the agenda. So today we have before us 8 items for approval. First being the approval of the October 3rd, 23 meeting minutes. Second, the approval of county vouchers, warrants, EALs, and the commissioner's report. Third, the approval of monthly reports. Fourth, the approval of bonds. Fifth, the approval of abates and rebates. Sixth is the 2023-2024 budget agreement between Sweetwater County Board of County Commissioners and Southwest Counseling Services that I mentioned last meeting was approved at their last monthly meeting. Seventh is the request to restaff the vacant position in the Road and Bridge Department. And the final is ratification of the draft comments on the proposed NEPA implementing regulations revisions. Commissioners, are there any questions on any of the consent agenda items? Hearing none, what is your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve our consent agenda.
Do you have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented by Commissioner Slaughter? Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Richards. Any discussion?
I thought we were going to remove B7.
We did that at the beginning of the
Oh,
meeting.
we don't have to say it again. Okay.
Any other questions? You have a motion and a second on the table. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous. Next up on the agenda is commissioner comments, and it looks like Commissioner Jones is up first.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On October 4th, I attended the Memorial Hospital Sweetwater County Monthly Board Meeting. The main topic was the full report of the financial audit. Audit went very well with only a small adjustment needing to be made. The overall feeling from the auditors and other hospitals they work with around the country is that healthcare has hit a bottom as far as the negative impacts from COVID. So hopefully things are starting to stabilize a little bit in healthcare. The MHSC finances appear to be stabilizing as well. So following that trend, their bad debt, charity care, days and receivables are trending down, as is the age of plant. So all good news there. I had to leave the meeting early because I was asked to testify in front of the Joint Travel Recreation Wildlife Legislative Committee regarding the BLM RMP via Zoom. So I was not able to attend the full meeting. On October 5th, I attended the Rock Springs Chamber Enterprise meeting. The main topic was the BLM RMP. We pretty much had a roundtable type of conversation where everyone was able to express their concerns. Also discussed was the future of wind power from Transwest Express. After that meeting, I did meet with Tammy Love and Irene Richardson in regards to Commissioner Richards' questions about bills, bids, and insurance and maintenance, things like that we're going to discuss later on in the meeting. So I won't go into that in depth. Also on the 5th, I attended the SEDC meeting in these chambers to hear the updates on future expansions for Trona and carbon capture. Pretty exciting stuff. Hopefully it all goes through and will certainly make Sweetwater County a better place to be than it is even today. On October 6th, I was asked to testify in front of the Joint Select Federal Natural Resource Management Committee. Regarding the BLM RMP. On the 9th, I attended the Star Transit Board meeting where they discussed hiring needs, investing funds, and their need for a investment policy. Excuse me. On the 11th, I met with Commissioner Slaughter, Mr. De Leon, Treasurer Cowan, Clerk Lane, and discuss MHSC and the potential how to help fund projects at the hospital. That conversation again will be a little later in this meeting, so I won't go into that meeting in depth. Also on the 11th, attended the monthly WCCA meeting via Zoom. Then right after that, I attended the museum board meeting where they discussed workbooks, moving money for a higher rate of return, and their financial reporting. Obviously, we were here and listened to the governor's office talk about the BLM RMP. There were interesting ideas and conversations. Hopefully, they will have a strong enough voice and actions to make a difference. Then contacted Kelly McGovern and asked for her to put some sort of analysis together what the impacts of the RMP would be to the school district 1 if alternative B were to go through. Did the same with Devin Brubaker for the airport. Sorry again, Commissioner Tillman, for
No, you didn't
stepping
have
on
to
your
say sorry.
toes on that one. I also did the same with Irene Richardson at the hospital. Continue to speak daily about the RMP. I'm very happy that so many people have taken time to get engaged and informed. It's more than obvious that not only is alternative B a horrible choice for Sweetwater County and others, but none of the four really are that good because the document is missing so many details, which is why the RMP needs to be pulled and reworked. And that is all I have for today.
Thanks, Commissioner. Busy couple weeks for you. Any questions for Commissioner Jones on his report?
Thank you for getting in there with all 4 feet.
Don't want to disappoint you.
Good luck with
I
that.
think that would be detrimental to my health. So
Looks like I'm up next. I'll keep it pretty short here. I attended the Mayor's and Commissioner lunch on October 4th. Discussed a variety of topics there, but mainly about some of the articles that were released on some of the happenings in Green River and the ever so enlightening social media comments that we all face. Discussed a little bit of specific purpose tax and a little more on the RMP with that, but always good to catch up with those folks. Mayor Mickelson had a prior engagement, so it's just myself and Green River in the chamber, but good discussion and appreciate those interactions each month. I also attended the Growth and Expansion Panel that SCDC put on here in the chambers on October 5th. Lots of growth anticipated for the future, so that's exciting to see. I think between the different, 5 panelists that were up here, we're looking somewhere in the realm of, roughly 10,000 people coming into the county, whether that's temporary or not, over the next probably 3 to 5 years if these projects move forward. So lots of growth on the horizon for Sweetwater, and it'll be interesting to see, how we accommodate some of that in some of our different roles. But lots of diversity heading our way, which is what everyone hopes for. But with that comes a lot of growing pains that we need to be prepared for. So we'll continue to assist in that as things progress. On Friday, the 6th, Commissioner Jones and I attended the inpatient behavioral health services meeting that the Memorial Hospital Sweetwater County put on with the different stakeholders throughout the community. Had a pretty good, about 2-hour, I think, discussion, SWOT analysis on some of the different needs in regards to inpatient services for mental health. I appreciate them for inviting us and trying to kind of take that bull by the horns. I think with most things relative to mental health, that there's a lot of discussion about it, but the bigger aspect is following through and trying to make a plan. So I think it's a great first step. It seemed like everyone was engaged and supportive of that. And we certainly will be moving forward in any avenues that we can to assist. So appreciate Tiffany and the team up there kind of coordinating that for the community's benefit. I attended the WCCA coordination meeting here with Nolan Rapp from the governor's office on Thursday, the 12th. I thought that was some pretty good discussion and continuation on some of the issues and conflict with the BLM's RMP plan. It was nice to see the support from all of the 23 different counties throughout the state who took interest in, the future effects that the preferred alternative might have on Sweetwater. So we'll see what happens with that. It sounded like there may be some form of the WCCA, all county involved kind of withdrawal request or something along those lines for a louder voice. So keep all you apprised if I hear more on that, but I thought it was a good discussion and appreciate them coming down. I'm not sure what more assistance the state has. It was more of just kind of them explaining what they're working on with their different partners and their different agencies. But I think primarily speaking, we're going to kind of have to work with our local team to provide our response with that. So either way, it's good to have the discussion and make sure that everyone feels similarly moving forward as we fight to protect what's best for Sweetwater. That's primarily all I had over the last couple of weeks, commissioners. I do have Board of Health and Southwest Counseling meetings next Wednesday, and we'll look forward to getting some updates on those. So this time I'd stand for any questions. And hearing none, Commissioner Slaughter, you're up next.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. On the 4th, we hosted our federal partners meeting here in the Castle Rock room. We did not get good personal attendance, even though I did have coffee and donuts available. So I think we will entice people for our next meeting, but it made some of our attendees happy to have those. We did have excellent Zoom participation from Seatskitty, BLM, the Ashley National Forest, and Congresswoman Hageman's office. Tom Kerner of the Wildlife Refuge spoke about hunting and fishing, along with an in-depth analysis of an invasive species of grass that has been brought into the refuge. It's called, and I apologize for this, but
Australis.
yeah, Rhagmitis australis, that they are very concerned with and are spraying to control. This grass has been taking over areas in the Platte River and on the Great Salt Lake. Officials with the BLM Lander, Rollins, and Rock Springs offices of the BLM all spoke on issues taking place in their districts. Ashley National Forest officials spoke on their progress. Congresswoman Hageman's staff spoke on all that is going on in Washington, including the voting dealing with the removal of House Speaker and what will take place in the future with that. On the 5th, we had a document review call on the official statements for the SPT bonds. The review took place with the underwriter, bond counsel, and various other interested legal parties. This gave us an opportunity to review all of the paperwork and gave us the weekend to review and make any necessary changes, additions, or deletions on that paperwork. On the 6th, we had a discussion of RMP comments with planner Eric Bingham, Attorneys De Leon and Danielle Betancourt, along with Commissioner Tolman. Discussion centered around how to strengthen our arguments on the RMP. Planner Bingham suggested retaining Attorney Betancourt to submit comments on behalf of the county. We will be reviewing that later today. On the 11th, I met with Commissioner Jones, Attorney De Leon, Treasurer Cowan, and Clerk Lane to discuss hospital maintenance payments and how best to administer them. Came up with a plan that will be presented to the hospital board by Liaison Jones. On the 12th, I attended the WCCA meeting addressing the RSRMP. The meeting was hosted by WCCA Attorney Micah Christensen and presented by Governor Gordon's Policy Advisor Nolan Rapp. The meeting was well attended by county officials around the state. The main focus was to coordinate a strategy to comment on the RMP prior to November 17th deadline. On the 13th, I met with HR Director McLean and John De Leon to create a job description and employment contract for Allison Valsic. Allison will be working as the administrative assistant on this SPT Joint Powers Board staff. Our staff was extremely helpful in getting things in order. On Friday, the 13th, Commissioner Slaughter's lovely wife fell while hanging curtains in her living room, and we spent the bulk of the afternoon and into the wee hours of the morning getting the distal radius bone reset and soft casted at the emergency room. I don't recommend this procedure for the weak of heart. After getting her home and settled with other friends and family, I was able to spend the last 2 days elk hunting. I would recommend this to anyone needing to reset or rejuvenate themselves. This afternoon, I will be participating in a pre-pricing call on the sale of the specific purpose tax bonds. The bonds are to be sold tomorrow morning. There will be a post-pricing call to discuss the bond sale once it's complete, and I'm very much looking forward to having the bonds sold and helping the cities and towns move forward with their projects after a long and arduous process to get to this point. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. I would stand for questions.
Certainly a long process on that, Commissioner. Appreciate your work and taking that one on. Give Mariella our best, and it was nice of her to let you still go hunting.
It was, and it was not she let me. She told me I was going hunting. She wanted me out of there, so.
Questions for Commissioner Slaughter or comments? Very good. Commissioner Tolman, you're up next.
For my book report, well, it has been eased by some of my fellow commissioners, so I won't go into detail on the federal partners meeting. Thank you, Commissioner Slaughter. He covered that very well. On October 5th, not December 4th, October 5th, I attended the Chamber of Commerce Enterprise Group meeting, as did Commissioner Taylor. We did have some discussions about the RMP again, a lot of questions. The Director of Communications and Government Relations for Power Company of Wyoming. It's an independent company that is trying to compete for power greater than 3,500 megawatts using renewable energy, solar and wind. They discussed Trans-West Express project and shoots their Chokecherry and Sierra Madre wind projects. They do have a 2016 right-of-way for 600 turbines on 1,400 acres, but as the technology changes, so does the amount of turbines needed. They can do that with less. Let's see, the Wyoming Energy Authority will be helping to diversify and expand renewable energy in Wyoming. They will be employing people from Casper, Rock Springs, and Rollins. I did participate in that call on the 5th with our legal counsel with the Coalition of Local Governments regarding the BLM RMP. We had a Dry Creek Trona cooperator call. I also attend the Sweetwater County Conservation District meeting, and I would encourage my fellow commissioners to try to make one of those first Thursday of the month meetings, because they have been the precursor to all of the federal involvement that we've had. I mean, we're the ones that established a really robust plan that's on file with all the federal agencies, and we were able to follow it up with developing a county federal land resource use plan last spring. They're also the ones that stay on top of all of the water issues, water quality issues with Bitter and a Kilpecker going through the county. So I just encourage you to learn more about that, because they are the ones who have the legislative charge to keep track of the natural resources in the county. On October 6th, I attended the discussion with WCCA, the County Commission Association, and Nolan Rapp at the governor's office, fellow commissioners, and we had 15 fellow commissioners on Zoom at that meeting also. It was mainly a discussion of different ideas of trying to get more involvement in commenting on the BLM RMP. I was a little bit disappointed with the governor's office when we asked specifically if they could help us with comments on subject area legal errors in the plan, and they I followed up with a call to Nolan Rapp, and he said they felt that was a county charge that we had to deal with that on our own. They were working with the state ones issues. But I did also talk to Justin Williams of the Department of Ag, and he said that he would assist us, at least with the ag comments. He would go back and try to find the legal errors in the plan, at least related to ag. Maybe we can follow up with some of the other state agencies to see what they're finding. The governor's office did, and Nolan Rapp is in charge of the federal natural resource policy account. He did say he was ready to stand up to offer additional help agencies get additional funding to stay engaged or to be able to do more commenting with that BLM resource management plan. It's just so unfortunate. I feel like 12 years of my life has been thrown away really for all the hundreds of hours of meetings that we attended as cooperators and trying to develop a balanced plan. Alternative D, it's not perfect. It has a lot of errors, but by BLM selecting alternative B, which was the far extreme end cap, it kind of distracts us from focusing on commenting on what would be a good balanced alternative. So they've split and divided our energies over 4 alternatives and focusing on one that it wasn't really even thoroughly vetted in the cooperator process. So I do want to thank the citizens of Sweetwater County because you were very civil in the public open house from all the comments I heard, and we appreciate that very much. I think that violence was expected and it wasn't forthcoming. So thank you so much to our residents. You make us proud, and to the BLM staff who were put on the front line while the leaders were surrounded by legal team or police officers for protection, but the staff was put on the front lines to deal and talk to the public. And I can't thank all of you enough for your civil behavior. It was wonderful. I also want to announce that the GOP, the Republican Party, is going to be doing a workshop at 6 o'clock Thursday at the Sheriff's Training Office for anyone who needs help in writing substantive comments regarding that BLM resource management plan. 6 o'clock Thursday at the Sheriff's Training Office. So that's just an announcement. If you want to get more engaged and involved in commenting, try to attend that. I attended the Eden Valley Senior Luncheon, shared a paper copy of the RMP so they could see what 1,400 pages looks like. It's daunting. It's beyond being able to even think about how you can comment on something that huge in a short amount of time. This weekend, I attended Friday night and Saturday Professional Women's Empowerment Summit. That's so I can deal with our chairman better.
Well put.
I'm sorry. I can't help but do this. We have such a great group of commissioners, and I'm so proud to be able to work with all of them. And I don't really need any empowerment because they do empower me. And I thank you very much, my fellow commissioners. I do like to tease them though, so have to excuse that. On the 11th, I attended a BLM grazing policy webinar. They have suspended the cooperator process for redoing the grazing regulations. Since it was a pre-decisional meeting, I can't really go into details, but there really were no details except that we don't want your input. We don't need you to tell us anything. We are not going to show you a copy of our policy. When it comes out, we will give you a copy of it. We just want you to help implement it. And they did it all while they're smiling and looking at us like it's no big deal. It just infuriates me. And I have to go to Rollins today and tomorrow and Wednesday to serve on the BLM Resource Advisory Council to provide advice to the Bureau of Land Management. Commissioner Espy from Carbon County says the best we can do is discuss the issue of trust. This RMP decision to select that alternative B has destroyed the trust that we have had as local governments in working with the BLM. It's just the most unfortunate, saddest thing that I have experienced in my 25 years of sitting in cooperator meetings. It just, I can't tell you how how discouraging it is to think that all of your efforts maybe they haven't come to nothing yet, but we are going to have to expend a lot of money and effort to try to turn this thing around. So I just ask the public to comment and try to show how those alternative B decisions are going to affect your life on the land. Attend the airport board meeting. The great thing is that they're working to finalize contracts to resume construction on the new terminal. They're working on their master plan. There's tons of things going on with the airport. They're always very proactive with everything they're doing. They have a new sewer plan, just lots of things going on. So great work, airport board and Devin Brubaker. There was a sage grouse environmental impact statement cooperator call for that. I believe it's 11th state. I missed that one. I did attend the Wyoming County Commission Association monthly call, which has already been covered. And I did attend the meeting with the governor on the 12th and the WCCA workshop we had here. On the 14th, I attended a book signing with Marcia Hensley, Away from It All was the name of her book. And it's a good read and talks a lot about the history of Eden Valley. And it's her love story with Mike Hensley, who was my speech instructor at Western Wyoming College hundreds years ago. So it was good to have something so positive. I mean, the BLM thing has put such a dreary outlook on so much of the work we do. You have to get away and just have some good positive reinforcement once in a while. So that's why I went to the empowerment meeting, really, Keaton. So don't get all too excited about that. And the last thing I would say, pray for peace in Israel and peace in the world, and that we don't end up in a world war. It's just very discouraging what's happening. Upcoming, I have the Resource Advisory Committee with the BLM in Rollins the next 2 days. Coalition of Local Governments will meet on the 24th in Lyman. Also, the Young at Heart meets that day, so I will attend all of those meetings. There's also another upcoming meeting. I don't know if any of our other fellow commissioners would like to attend it, but it's an annual forum, November 2nd in Craig, Colorado. It's hosted by Colorado Northwest Community College, but the topic is the Greater Green River Basin and Wind River Basin, talking about core minerals, carbon ore, rare earth, critical minerals that are coming from Wyoming mostly. So I think it's really important that some of us attend that, and I would like to attend. If any of my other fellow commissioners, I think it would be very insightful. There was a meeting earlier in Vernal talking about Wyoming's Powder River coal and how Uinta Basin in Utah could use it. And we need to focus on keeping those minerals and industries in Wyoming. So that is my concern with someone attending the November 2nd in Craig, Colorado. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report.
Thanks, Commissioner. Appreciate most of your comments in there.
What?
Appreciate all your work. I'm glad you're feeling empowered. In the future, if you could put decaf in that cup, we would greatly appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Richards.
Commissioner Tillman, I think it's less that we empower Commissioner Tillman and more that we just know to stay the hell out of her way for fear of getting run over.
Yes.
I totally failed the class.
Busy, very busy couple weeks for you. We appreciate your insight, especially on this BLM process. Obviously, that touches close to most of us, but you certainly have had the most experience over the last 12 years or so. So we appreciate all you do with that. Any other comments, questions, commissioners?
My bite is not really too bad, so you can get closer.
If not, it looks like we're still a little bit ahead of schedule there. And Commissioner Richards, you're bringing up the rear.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, fellow commissioners. I'll keep this short and sweet because as I mentioned at our last meeting, most of the last 2 weeks would be and has been taken up by a combination of hunting season and a long planned family vacation. I was able to squeeze in a couple meetings though, starting with the Southwest Wyoming Industrial Growth and Expansion Panel on the 5th, organized by the Sweetwater County Economic Development Coalition and moderated by Elizabeth Bingham. It's a great chance to learn about some of the projects that are coming to our part of the state. And it was good to hear that the companies that are bringing those projects are a little bit in tune with the local needs, and that most of them are committed to being a partner with our communities and addressing those needs. On the 11th, I attended the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting where they addressed the hearings we dealt with earlier, and they also adopted new bylaws to guide and govern their board, something that was a long time coming as their previous bylaws were pretty out of date. The new bylaws are much more concise and much more relevant to their current role in county land use. I want to offer a huge thank you to the members of the commission as well as Director Bingham for the work they do there and for the county. Later that day, I also attended the monthly WCCA update call where we received an update from Senator Barrasso as well as James Levitt from Representative Hageman's office, which actually drove a point home about how difficult confronting the BLM's Rock Springs RMP really is. It's such a complex process that even people at that level have difficulty understanding how to combat what could be the single worst hit to the economy of Sweetwater County that we've ever faced. I wish it was as simple as defunding an alternative in an appropriation bill and withholding money, but it isn't. It's much more nuanced process than that. And I want to assure our constituents that we're working diligently to address it. And I think we see that from all of our comments. We're all very involved in doing what needs to be done. On the 12th, I also remotely attended the WCCA coordination meeting with Nolan Rapp from the governor's office, where along with representatives of counties from around the state, we strategized about how to address the threat the RMP poses. One thing that was made abundantly clear in the meeting is that all of the counties in Wyoming, together with the governor's office, are united in their opposition to Alternative B. I don't think there's a single local issue in recent Wyoming history that's ever spurred a more united front among counties in our states. It's pretty much unanimous from every county because they understand that if this is allowed to stand as proposed, that the writing's on the wall and their counties are next, because Alternative B is scary. And if Alternative B is the precedent going forward, there is no more development anywhere in RMP exists, anywhere BLM land exists. They're going to put an end to it. In the coming weeks between hunting trips, I'll attend a few meetings, starting with the CFAC meeting tonight, I believe, and try again, an SEDC meeting later this week, Fair Board meeting next week, and Combined Communications meeting the following week. On November 3rd, I'll attend the Rock Springs Chamber Rockstar Awards, where I will present the award for Best Customer Service. And on November 4th, I'll attend Cowboys Against Cancer, something that I hope everyone in our community supports. That's all I have for you today, Mr. Chairman. I'm happy to stand for any questions.
Thanks, Commissioner. Any questions for Commissioner Richards? If not, that completes the commissioner comments portion of the agenda. Nice work as always, commissioners. It's a busy bunch, lots of meetings, and we don't always do everything right, but we are certainly pretty active. So I certainly appreciate that. And I think members of the public would too. With that, this will bring us up to tab C on the agenda, which is our action and presentation items. First being the Sweetwater County Library System Annual Report. With us today is Lindsay Travis, the Library Director from the Sweetwater County Library System, and I believe some support staff as well. And good morning to you all. And goodies. That's a way to butter us up.
Hey, there we go. Thank you very much.
You want my chocolate? You might need it more than the rest of us.
Don't give it to Mary.
Thank
say,
you.
might
Thank
sweeten
you.
her
You
up a
got
little
the
bit.
message. You got the message for chocolate. Thank you.
Good morning, Chairman West, commissioners. I'm here today to give the commission an update on what we are doing at the library and provide an annual report for fiscal year 23. With me today is our board chair, Megan Jensen, and our business manager, Leora Kraft, who's back there. And we have some gifts for you just as a thank you for all that you do for our county. The mugs are what we gave away to adults for our summer reading program. There's some stickers in there from the Wyoming Library Association, and of course chocolate, because chocolate's good. It's October. So I want to start by thanking the library board for always supporting the library's mission. Our mission is that the Sweetwater County Library System improves the quality of life in our communities by helping individuals obtain information providing materials that are reliable and current, encouraging a lifelong joy of reading and learning for all, especially children. So everything we do at the library is with this mission in mind. We help people provide materials and we encourage reading. One of the things that the library board did this year to help support the mission is by approving an intellectual freedom policy. You should have a copy of the intellectual freedom policy in your annual report there. The intellectual freedom policy ensures the right of every library user to access information. While none of the information is new in the policy, it is because it's been outlined in other policies that we have. This policy clearly states that the library materials are for everyone. Library materials are protected by the First Amendment. It's a parent's responsibility to monitor the reading materials of their own children, and that it's okay to object to items for themselves, but not for their own people's own children, but not for others. So that's that policy. I think it sends a clear message on what the library it stands for. Next, let's go through some of the library usage stats that are listed in the annual report that I gave you. The first thing is circulation. The library continues to be a very popular place and library materials continue to be checked out in big numbers. Our overall circulation for the library in fiscal year 23 was 254,476, which is an 11% increase over fiscal year 22. Of that total, 193,403 were physical materials, which means books, DVDs, things that you actually physically get from the library, which is a 5.5% increase over fiscal year 22. Of the total checkouts, 61,073 of those were digital materials, which are ebooks, digital audiobooks, but mostly audiobooks. The library provides 2 ebook and audiobook services. The first one is Hoopla, which is paid for solely by the library system. And then the other is Libby, which is part of a consortium through the entire state. Because we have this great consortium with all the libraries across the state of Wyoming, we're able to provide hundreds of thousands of materials to people here in Sweetwater County. So if we go to the next page in your report, we have our library programs. The library system provides programs for people of all ages, from toddler time for our youngest community members to story time for our preschool age children, and then programs for school age kids, teenagers, and adults. In fiscal year 23, we saw a total of 33,823 people attend our library programs. That's a 36% increase over fiscal year 22. Of those programs, 618 were for children, 101 were for teens, and 24 were for adults. In June, we had nearly 6,000 people attend library programs, which is the largest number we've had in a single month in many years. I worked at the library system for 10 years, and I'm pretty sure that's the highest number we've had. I credit our fantastic staff for the increase in our program attendance. They're always coming up with creative ideas to keep people learning and reading. The next page, we have our summer reading program. Summer is the biggest season at the library, and that's because of our summer reading program. The goal of the summer reading program is to encourage children to continue reading throughout the summer when school is not in session. And because when adults read, kids also read, we have a program for adults as well. We had a very successful summer reading program this year. 1,458 youth signed up for the program, and of that total, 67% completed the program, which is an 8% increase over last year. To complete the program, kids needed to read 200 minutes over the course of the summer. We had 922 adults sign up for the program, which is 260 more than last year. I think it's because we got those cool mugs that we were giving away. Everybody wanted those. And that was 66% completed the program, which is a 10% increase over the previous year. In total, throughout the summer, Sweetwater County residents read 2.47 million minutes over the summer through our summer reading program. So we've had a pretty good year. On the next page, I have just some of the additional services that we provide at the library. The first is the Community Fine Arts Center. That Community Fine Arts Center is connected to the Rock Springs Library, and it is home to a collection of artwork owned by Sweetwater School District Number 1. Along with featured exhibits every month, the CFAC displays artwork by Rock Springs students in its gallery every spring, and also hosts art classes for both youth and adults. Our A is for art programs, pretty popular for children. And then we also have painting and knitting programs there. We also, attached to the Rock Springs Library, we have the Children's Discovery Center, which is fairly new. That opened back in, I think, 2021. It's a mini children's museum with hands-on learning experiences for children and families. The Discovery Center continues to be very popular among our families in Sweetwater County. We average about 900 visits per month. Over across town in Rock Springs at the White Mountain Library, we have a seed library, that's grown very popular as well. It's a place for residents just come pick up seeds for their gardens every year. That's sponsored by the Sweetwater County Library Foundation. And we have shelves that were built by a local dentist, and it's really a beautiful display over there. We also have our senior outreach program, which is one of my favorite programs in the library system. We have a librarian who delivers materials, books, DVDs, CDs, audiobooks to homebound citizens in Sweetwater County. Sometimes she is the only person that those citizens see every month when she stops by with their items. It's a very great program. She also provides services at our local senior centers. We also added a few new services this last fiscal year. The first one that's listed here is puzzles. We have a great board game collection at the Green River Library, and we've added puzzles to that this year. So if you don't want to buy puzzles, just stop by the library. You can pick them up and check them out. Same with games. It's a great collection. It's proven to be very popular. And in January 2024, we're going to have our first puzzle race at the library, which will be exciting. We also have blood pressure cuffs available for checkout at the library. This was through a partnership with the Wyoming Department of Health and the Wyoming Center on Aging. They provided those to us, and they've done some marketing to local doctors. So if someone has to monitor their blood pressure for a month, they don't have to go out and purchase a blood pressure cuff. They can stop by the library and pick it up and use it. We also added a test prep database. This is part of that statewide consortium that we have here in Wyoming. So if you have students or family members who are looking to take the ACT, the SAT, any of the certification tests for nursing or other professional type jobs, they have practice tests that you can access for free with your library card through our website. We also added a VEX robots program for kids. It introduces kids to coding through a robot program. They have challenges and all sorts of fun things. With our increasingly digital world, it's a great way to get kids started on learning how to do coding at a very young age. And then over at our Green River Library, we started a Reading Dragons program, which is a reading program to keep school-age kids reading throughout the school year as well. It's a card collecting program, so it's kind of like collecting cards like you would for any other type game. I'm not really into games, so I'm not exactly sure what I would compare it to, but it's very popular, and kids have very much jumped in on that program. So we are always looking at researching new services that'll help our communities and finding new ways to deliver services. And I would like to end my presentation by inviting members of the County Commission to visit our libraries and see what we have available. I'd be happy to give anyone a tour. So, do you have any questions?
Well, thanks, Lindsay. We appreciate the annual update, and a lot of these services I was unaware of, so I appreciate learning more on that. My little boy took a field trip with his daycare yesterday to the Discovery Center and was ranting and raving about it last night. And so we appreciate that addition. I was kind of surprised, I got to say, on some of the circulation numbers. I mean, 26,000 more than fiscal year 22. Why do you think there's that 11.5% increase?
I don't really know. I think just people are getting out more. I mean, in 2022, not as many people were leaving their houses, but we're back to pre-pandemic levels. And I think we're even a little bit higher than pre-pandemic levels. People are very interested in getting out and doing things and checking out materials.
Well, that's great. Kudos to you and your staff and your board for everything going on within the library system. That's a lot of different services. It offers a variety of additional things to do throughout the community. Everyone says there's nothing to do around here, but I don't think they pay attention much. Any comments or questions for Lindsay or Megan, commissioners?
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Richards.
Just want to say thank you. It's been a pleasure being the liaison to the library board. I'm sorry I've missed the last few meetings. Schedules just haven't worked out for me, but I should get back on track and see you at your next meeting. I appreciate everything you guys do, and you've done a fantastic job supporting our library system.
Thank you.
Commissioner, perhaps you would refer to your library.
I'm pretty sure I did last
Well, you could
meeting
do
when it was actually Banned Books Week.
Any other comments, commissioners? Lindsay and Megan, we appreciate you guys coming over this morning and giving us an update on all the good things happening with the library system. We'll continue to support you where we can, and we'll take advantage of that invitation too. So
Thank you.
thank you very much. Up next under the action presentation is item 2, which we added at the beginning of the meeting. Commissioners, you might recall with that amendment, we've got the hospital maintenance expenditures discussion. We tabled this at our meeting 2 weeks ago. So first, I would entertain a motion to untable the hospital maintenance expenditures.
Mr. Chairman, so moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Jones. Do we have a second?
I'd second that.
Second by Commissioner Toman. All those in favor, any discussions? Excuse me.
Aye.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. All right, this item is back on the table, but I believe Commissioner Jones has a little bit of an update for us, so I'd hand it over to him at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll give you an update and then we can take action on this, and hopefully this update will clarify several things. First of all, Commissioner Richards appropriately asked a couple of questions surrounding the hospital bills that some of them were turned in for payment that were actually not bills yet. And he also asked about insurance. So I had a meeting with Tammy Love and Irene Richardson. We discussed only turning in actual bills, which they have no problem with. So that one's taken care of. I don't think there's any questions. The next question that Commissioner Richard asked was whether or not insurance should be paid as a maintenance item. I sent you all a link to the one and only article I could find that kind of addressed that. Unfortunately, I had hoped that there was going to be something in black and white that would spell it out for us, and I couldn't find it. That was the only somewhat of a legal document that I could find or legal discussion. It read the obligation to maintain, which carries with it the obligation to repair and replace, is exactly that. It's the duty to repair various building components when they are damaged in reference to insurance. So I suppose it's probably could be argued both ways as to whether or not insurance is maintenance, but I lean towards yes, based on what that article read. The other thing, and Treasurer Cowan was here because these conversations kind of evolved into what else might be coming down the road, and the hospital had requested that the maintenance fund, if they did not spend it all, could be rolled over into the next year. So that's when met, excuse me, with Commissioner Slaughter, Treasurer Cowan, Clerk Lane, and John DeLeon, and we had a conversation about that where Treasurer Cowan and I asked him to be here just in case there were any questions, but he suggested a depreciation fund. So there would be the Title 25, there would be the maintenance fund, and then this depreciation fund. So 3 separate ones. It actually makes things very simple, very transparent, and I think everybody kind of gets exactly what they're after. So essentially how it would work, and this is an example using current numbers. So this is in no way, shape, or form a guarantee of any amounts of money. But currently we had agreed to fund the hospital at 1.5 million roughly for maintenance. So if we used that number as an example, not a guarantee, there would be roughly $500,000 for maintenance for the hospital. Then the other $1 million would go into the depreciation fund. That then could be rolled over year after year until the hospital would put a plan together to request that money for a larger project. In the meantime, the money is all ours. We control it. We can invest it. We can get a return on it. One thing that I made very clear with the hospital is that there are no guarantees on these figures. They can be changed as needed. It's up to us as to how much the money will be, what the number will be. And obviously that depends on the budgets and what money we have available. So at least that's a starting point. So those are the, and the hospital was very happy with that, by the way. So I think it kind of covered everything. Am I missing anything, John or Mark? Did I skip over something?
I think you covered it well.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Tolman.
correct me, Commissioner Jones, but I believe the county has paid that insurance, right? As a part of the maintenance.
In the past?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
I feel that by having us pay that insurance, we are also helping to reduce our total maintenance bill, because if insurance can pick up some of that bill, we're saving money. So for that reason, I think it should stay in the insurance should stay in the maintenance fund. My opinion.
I'd agree with that. I probably should also mention, part of the reason for the process we went through here and the meetings and the conversations is statutorily, of course, the hospital is funded in a different way than I believe anything else in the county. For example, the maintenance fund is in statute, doesn't say how much, it just says there will be a maintenance fund. So it's kind of part of the reason for going down the path that we went, is there's some statutory requirements in there that have to be met.
And just for clarification on that, in regards to the item we'll be taking action on, they're going to resubmit.
So what I talked to Irene and Tammy about is we would vote down the last round of bills in the entirety that they sent us. And they will start over fresh, send us new ones. Everything's clean, because I'm not sure we're the ones who can go through their list and decide exactly whether or not what's a bill and what isn't. So
Okay.
wipe it clean, start over fresh. Everything's transparent and easy to follow.
Okay. I think that makes sense, and I appreciate their cooperation on some of the clarification that Commissioner Richards brought forth on that. I don't know that I'm sold on the depreciation fund. I understand kind of the concept of it, but I also don't want to overcomplicate it. I mean, I kind of feel like that's similar to, basically we're budgeting an amount for their maintenance, whether they fully spend that amount or not, it's reimbursed, right? So any additional funds that come forth through Title 25, obviously we have an obligation to pay that. So it's more of, I guess the thought process maybe is rolling the money over. So if they have projects, they would still come before us, but they're kind of doing that anyway. We're just pulling it out of, the general coffers, such as the lab expansion. So I guess it doesn't really matter. In that realm, if they're having to come for approval anyway, I mean, it's kind of the same thing. It's just, I guess, dedicating some of those funds. So as long as there's that approval piece, I think I'm good with that. Any other comments, thoughts, commissioners? Commissioner Richards?
Last meeting, I asked two questions, why, and it turned into this where I threw Commissioner Slaughter under the bus and said, you have some background here. How about you jump in? I appreciate Commissioner Jones and Commissioner Slaughter's efforts into clarifying all this, and then also Mark's willingness to jump in and help. One of the things we learned at how to be a public officer was to ask questions, and that's what spurred this. It was really fresh in my mind. We only pay bills where there is an itemized breakdown attached. We don't pay summaries. We pay actual bills, and that's what spurred the question. I'm glad I asked the question, because we're getting some resolution here, and because we've always done it that way isn't a reason to continue to do things that way. So thanks for indulging my questions, and I encourage all of you to ask similar questions, because that's how we make our responsibilities to the public transparent.
Mr. Chairman, I would just like to thank Commissioner Richards for his willingness to throw me under the bus on each of these issues. He seems to be more than willing to do so. So thanks again.
At least he didn't say you slaughtered it this time.
What did I do to you?
I'm sorry.
Any other comments or questions on this? Is everyone good with the depreciation fund? No thoughts? I think that's something that can be probably worked out with Mark and Cindy's office moving forward. For the time being, we do need to address the item on the table, which is just the approval of the maintenance expenditures. Sounds like the intent is to kill that today. They'll resubmit at our next meeting and we'll go ahead and move forward with that approval. So with that, let's start with that and I'll entertain a motion to approve the hospital maintenance expenditures.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Commissioner Toman. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Jones. Once again, the intent is to kill this. So any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, just
Commissioner
to
Richards.
clarify, our intent here is to vote nay to kill this, and they will bring back a better itemized list of maintenance items.
That's correct. Any further comments, questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay?
Nay.
Nay.
Motion is unanimous and a nay vote. So that item does die. We'll revisit that at our next meeting when the hospital submits. We appreciate their cooperation with that. Thanks to Commissioner Jones and Slaughter for working with them on that. Any other discussion on the expenditures or the appreciation fund, or we just want to move forward with that?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. Do we need a motion to set up that fund?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner, I think the way the chairman described it is probably pretty accurate, the way you would proceed in that it's something that you will look at, and I think Commissioner Richards as well, something you'll look at the numbers, see what applies, and that'll be something that you would bring forward either potentially in the next budget or if it becomes appropriate, Commissioner Taylor, to bring based on the numbers that are on the table now, you could decide when in the future would be the appropriate time for that action. So right now, I think there's discussion that there's an openness for further discussion, and then you can look at that in detail.
Everyone on board with that? Okay, we appreciate that. Thanks to Cindy and Mark and John for your help with that, and we'll see what that looks like moving forward. Sounds like we've got some clarification on the expenditures and the reimbursements there, so much appreciated. That does move us right along. We are 2 minutes behind. Up next is a break, so we will go ahead and resume at our next item, which is a resolution to consider vacating a publicly dedicated roadway and alleyway. We've got the Public Works Department here at 10:40, so we'll take about an 8-minute break.
What? I have a long time.
Okay, we'll call this meeting back to order, 3 minutes late, thanks to Commissioner Toman. And I think before we get started with item 4, Commissioner Jones, do you have something you wanted to add?
I did, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. I meant to mention, and I failed to, but I wanted to thank everybody who worked through this situation with the hospital. I think we had lots of great conversations. Everybody was easy to work with, both from Irene and Tammy, as well as everybody here in the courthouse. So just wanted to give a thanks to everybody.
Very good. We will move right along into item number 4 under tab C. We've got a resolution to consider vacating a publicly dedicated roadway and alleyway. Got Mr. Legursky here with us this morning, Public Works Director, and good morning, Gene.
Good morning, Chairman West, rest of the county commissioners. What you have before you is step 2 of a 3-step process. This is actually the vacation of a alleyway. You guys actually took action on the zoning resolution where this land is at previously today, down by Mr. Jasperson's property. And what he wants to do is vacate the alley between off of Washington Street behind where he wants. He said the 9 lots were located. There was a viewer's report that was sent out about a week ago to you guys. If you have any questions, Andy's here to answer the technical portion of it. But with that, the resolution can go forward. And what will happen after this, if you guys pass this resolution, we'll post the property. Cindy Lane will send out all the letters to interested parties, utility companies and those that have rights with it, and we'll wait for comments. We'll publish it on our website for public comments, and then I'll bring something in front of you guys if we have no comments that have to be addressed to officially vacate this if the time is correct and we can answer all questions and answers.
Thanks, Gene. Any questions on this resolution, commissioners? Hearing none, what's your pleasure on resolution 23-10-EN-01?
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve resolution number 23-10-EN-01.
Got a motion to approve by Commissioner Slaughter. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Richards. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous. Next is item 5, a resolution for the notice of intent to vacate a publicly dedicated alleyway within block 18 of the Jamestown plat. And we'll hand it back to Gene.
Okay, so this is actually the previous step before this one, different parcel, but this is step 1. If somebody comes in and says, hey, we want to vacate, create, do something to a road, this is what we have to initially do. And this is a resolution to vacate an alleyway. Oh, sorry, just a sec. I missed it. I'm going to back up. The very first one was the first one that we did. Annie and I talked about this. So this was the first one was the first step. The second one is the second step, and I apologize for that. The second one is on Kale's property down with the alleyway. The first one was a 4th Street in Jamestown. I got him confused in my mind, so I apologize for that. And what this is the why don't we just go back and describe the first one to you guys again, since I completely botched it.
Well, we clearly didn't catch it either. So yeah.
I apologize. We talked about putting them in a different, and we go, no, let's put them in order. And yeah, I messed it up. So anyway, we'll go back to resolution 2310-EN-01. This is the first step in vacating this alley. The alley is off of, is in the Jamestown plat. It is actually, I'm going to flip to the thing. Off of Wilson Street and 4th Street. It's actually the extension of 4th Street. We've been approached to vacate this alley. This road just dead ends into somebody else's property. And we're also going to vacate a little portion of the alley behind John Jasperson's house. The alley directly to the north of this has been previously vacated. So this makes sense. If you guys want to do this, we will appoint Andy Hooton as the viewer. You guys will actually establish a cost so we can advertise and do everything that this needs to be done before it can go on to step 2, which we'll handle in another resolution. So I apologize for completely messing that up. But that's what this is. This is the first step in. We had a request to vacate this portion of 4th Street. So we have to bring it to you guys to see if you guys even want to consider vacating this and go through the first step of the process.
Okay, that makes sense. I was confused.
Yeah,
as
sorry
well,
about that.
'cause
I know
was-
ooh,
Yeah, so first you consider, and then the next one is the notice of intent, which we
Yes.
already,
yes. And then the third
Pointed.
one, what you do is you vacate if,
Okay.
if you guys so desire.
all right, so everyone's good with the action we took on the consideration still? Okay. No, appreciate you catching that.
Lucky I stapled everything together and I was like, wait a second, I got my papers messed up. No, I just messed up.
Okay, so now on EN02, we'll start with the notice of intent.
Yes. So this notice of intent is phase two of the three-step process, basically. And this is for the alleyway that you guys took action on in the zoning resolution. And basically what we would be doing is vacating a portion of the alleyway to the west of Washington Street. There is the viewers report that you guys did receive on it. I don't think there was any questions. There is some other stuff that we have to do as far as this. We'll have County Clerk Cindy Lane notify all owners by registered mail. We'll actually post the property, have to advertise it for 30 days, and then we will bring another resolution to vacate if so desired, and we can answer everybody's questions.
Any questions on this resolution, commissioners? Got a lot happening down there.
That and the gas line going in. Water line last 2 years. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on in Jamestown.
If there's no questions, what is your pleasure on resolution 23-10-EN-02, commissioners?
I would move to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Got a motion to approve by Commissioner Slaughter. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Richards. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous.
Thank you. Sorry about the
Thanks,
confusion.
Gene. No problem. We appreciate the clarification, and thanks, Andy, for the report. Moving right along is item number 6. We've got a request for an additional position in the clerk's office. Before us this morning is Clerk Lane and HR Director Gary McLean. Good morning to you both.
Morning, Commissioners. Before you is a request, staff an additional position in the county clerk's office for an accounting position. In the request, we provided a range from an entry-level type position, meaning we had somebody that didn't have a lot of the background but was a good employee, or maybe had some potential that we could set for some criteria to obtain the necessary accounting background, up to somebody with had a bachelor's degree in accounting and some experience doing the kind of work. Part of this request and discussion has come from the standpoint that historically we staffed the office with clerks, folks that have worked in banks and other areas. As you know, particularly over the last 10 years, there's been significant changes in the public accounting standards and the complexity of the county operations relative to this, which has made it difficult for folks to perform accounting functions that don't have basic orientation to the accounting principles, and also to learn the public accounting side of things, which you generally aren't going to have someone who, even folks that have done a lot of accounting, generally haven't done public sector accounting, particularly fund accounting, public auditing, and reporting public accounting on accrual basis. So the intent of this is to try to hire someone who can take that lead with some accounting background, provide them some training in the governmental specific issues that we have, GASP, GAAP, work with the auditors so that there's a stronger knowledge base to move forward and implement those accounting transactions within Munis and provide a little bit higher functioning. As you know, I think we discussed at a prior meeting, we had identified someone in the treasurer's office to kind of fill a similar role. She's currently taking accounting courses. She's around an associate's level right now. With the idea that we would have folks in both the treasurers and the clerks area. You know, the finances and the reporting and accounting of the county are really divided into 2 or 3 halves, if you include yourself in that. That could take the lead and provide that more professional approach to the accounting in those respective offices. And so what you have in front of you are the progression for different levels of those and the total cost of employment associated with those. And then I think the last thing that I would mention is that obviously one of the concerns is relative to FTEs. If you look at kind of over the time when the clerk took office, there was around 16 FTEs through, well, depending on whether you're including the elections or not, but now, you know, it's gone down, and looking at adding, you know, a position back in to perform some of those technical accounting functions. So, what?
Yeah. All right. And then I'd like to add that it wouldn't be, I mean, it's adding a position because it's changing it from the accounting manager position to something that is more aligned with where I want the office to go, which is to have more interaction with the accounting practices of the county instead of one person being involved in that. We now have the treasurer bringing someone up to be more, you know, adept at doing accounting there. And that's what we'd like to see in the clerk's office as well, is that when we do hire, we have some more retirements coming up, that we do hire people with that background, and that way they can take some of those functions, and we diversify amongst the office staff as well, and not just having one person. So that would eliminate that other discussion we've been having and add this position in there at the, that would also be helping with payroll and invoicing, because I think we need to have more than one person that knows the accounting practices, especially from the clerk side, but also learning about the other actions some of the component units and entities have for us.
i.e. budgeting.
Yes, and auditing.
So in our packet, it's a request to reclassify a seasonal position on the top, but then down below, it's a request for a new position. Is this a reclassification?
No, it's just a new position. It's a different.
Okay. All right, and then the position, you know, the grades, they're all based off a planner. Can you explain that? On the left there, it says planners, the different grades.
No, the grades are just for, if there is, that's a typo, but the positions are an accountant, 1 through 4, depending on their education, experience, and training. And
Yeah.
so we created a job description, and based on what level of education that they have, or experience that they have, then they could be placed at one of those levels, which is why we provided the range, so that in the marketplace, you may have people that have an associate's level, or people that have a bachelor's degree, or someone maybe even within the office, which was the case in Mark's area, in the treasurer's area, where you had somebody who had interest in that, is currently moving up, and we could move them along with it.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Richards?
Gary, do you have in front of you the form that we got? Because the form, it's just a little confusing to us, because I think that 1, it's the wrong form. And 2, I think it has 4 levels of planner on there versus an accounting 1
Yeah,
position.
I see that. Yeah, I think probably she just used the, when she prepared to send the form up, used the template from that, but the amounts that are represented are correct. It's just the planner part. So it would be the same with respect to account. I apologize.
I didn't think Cindy wanted us to hire her a planner.
A little planning never hurts.
Sometimes I needed to vacate properties.
Yeah, I apologize for that.
So the lower grade would be accounting or accountant 1, and then up from there, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah. So just trying to allow for Cindy to approach the problem from a variety of things. You might get someone in the marketplace who's worked in an accounting firm or done lots of accounting or public sector accounting. Then we could bring them in at that appropriate level. If there was someone within the staff or the county who was interested in growing in that area or was a good candidate, then we could move them along from that level. So that's kind of the idea. We just don't know who we're going to get and be able to identify. So that's the purpose of the other range, that the highest range being a bachelor's degree of in accounting. I think the ultimate goal is that if you look at it this way, there's two big challenges that all the accounting folks or offices have. One is you need to understand the principles of governmental accounting, and those are governed. For those of you that went to the public officer training, you probably are tired of hearing the Uniform Municipal Fiscal Procedures Act, but everything they do is subject to that. But in that, it references that we have to comply with generally accepted accounting principles. And those are a big wide range of things. That's largely what the auditors audit. Are we complying with all of those things? So if you don't have some orientation of that by education, then it's a little difficult to understand what you're doing and why you're doing it. That's the first thing. The second thing is, then you need to be able to understand how to translate that into Munis, which is the accounting system for the county, and be able to produce reports that are accurate and representative for the audit and for management purposes. And ultimately, those financial transactions that occur during the year need to hit, as you know, those reports, balance sheet, income statement, so on and so forth. And so if you don't kind of understand that whole system and how that works, then it's hard to be confident when you're confronted with the myriad of day-to-day challenges that come forth as to where they need to and how they need to be handled, both in the accounting system as well as within the financial reporting system. So is it rocket science? It's not rocket science, but it's you need to have a proper orientation. Then the second part of that is that when audit season comes around, as I pointed out, what they're auditing is our compliance with that statutory structure with Uniform Municipal Fiscal Procedures Act, our own policies and generally accepted accounting principles. And so as we engage in those discussions with the auditors, we need to understand why they're concerned about that, what the rules are, and how we can adjust our practices to continue to meet those rules. That's really the sum and substance of it.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Slaughter.
I think with the understanding, that obviously this is not a planner position, this is the accounting position that we're talking about, that this is well in line with the discussions that we've been having and the direction that we would like to go. I think having that accounting position in the clerk's office where they can learn as they go along, they can learn from the corporations that we have hired to, at this point in time, help us with our accounting procedures. I think that fits in once again along the lines of how I saw the structure working. So in the discussions that we've had, I think that this is something that fits very well. I think Cindy's done a good job working with Gary to come up with something that will fit in line, that we can build on and have an in-house person who's doing that work for us as we develop them for the future.
Yeah, and so you're just listing it as an accounting specialist simply because you don't know if it's going to be a 1 or a 4 or a 3 or, yeah. Okay, I got it.
I mean, to be perfectly honest, just looking at the marketplace, if we had someone internally identified in there, we'd probably be moving that way now. So, you know, I think the goal would be if the marketplace has to get someone a little more further up the 2 or 3 at that level. But the reality is, we don't know what's out there. We have some information from the auditors that they've had difficult finding positions. We get people out there with the general background, but they're not always interested in this kind of role. I would say this is pretty consistent. If you look at the cities who have a somewhat similar structure, if you look at the colleges, the University of Wyoming, they have similar things like this. So you essentially have an accounts payable office, an accounts receivable office. Within there, they perform a variety of accounting functions. Those might be payroll, those might be accounts payable, they might be certain aspects of the audit, financial reporting, budget. And so you want to make sure that the information coming out of that system are accurate and people have command of that. As you know, all of you are elected, Cindy's elected. We're trying to build a structure that regardless who's in office can go on and provide consistent information over time. That's really the idea.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Richards,
I'd move to approve the staffing of an accounting specialist position in the county clerk's office as presented.
do you have a motion to approve by Commissioner Richards? Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Slaughter. Further discussion? I've got one question. Do we have a job description prepared for this already?
We do. I mean, as much as we know, and I have a copy here if you'd like to review that. I'll just give you that right now.
So I know there was some concern with the job description and previous discussions, and so I think that would just be beneficial for us to review. I mean, I support the direction. Cindy and I have met several times on kind of some of this reclassification, so to speak. I think, I'm on board with it, and I would like to see an updated form just so that everything's, crystal clear before we execute and record it.
And I'll bring that up today, Mr. Chairman.
And I would have liked to review the job descriptions, so
Mr. Chairman,
go ahead, Gary.
could I make a request? And I think we want to have as much comfort on everybody's level, because I think this is important as a stepping off point for moving forward. Here's maybe a reasonable request for everybody. If we could get permission to advertise, we could go ahead and advertise that we could come back with, make sure that the job description is finalized with any input that anybody has. And I can have the form at the next meeting, but we wouldn't have to delay by getting some interested parties. As you know, that when you advertise, we're not advertising with the full job description, just a job summary. And I think we could do that adequately.
I would appreciate that from a personal standpoint. Is everyone else good with that? I know we've got some action on the table here, but I just think it's important that we have this, clearly understood moving forward. Any other input, commissioners? Any changes to any motions that were made?
Mr. Chairman, would you like me to withdraw my second? I would be willing to do that if you'd like to act on this at a future meeting.
I mean, I would
And then
feel
we can
better about it,
readdress
but
this in a
I'm
different
one of
way.
5, so I'll go with the group here, but
Happy to withdraw my motion if my second approves.
sounds like we have 2 withdrawals. So with that, I think the motion would be to authorize the advertisement for an accounting specialist to move forward pending review from review and approval of the actual position with the associated job description. Does that work for everyone?
Chairman, I'll make that motion.
We have a motion by Commissioner Richards. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Slaughter. Any further discussion? Good with that, John? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous. Thank you both. Appreciate that. And we'll look forward to the next agenda. Next is item 7. We've got a memo to the board from Mr. McLean here regarding Christmas and the New Year holiday discussion. I'll hand it back to Gary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, County Commissioners. Each year around this time, it seems like the holiday season creeps up on us. Past commissions have used this period of time to evaluate whether there was any action desired by the board to approve any additional days during the Christmas and New Year's holiday. This has also been a period where some previous boards have given consideration to any kind of one-time bonus allocations. And obviously there's the reason it's brought up at this time. There's time to process payroll, to communicate people, make plans. And so in our policy, this time frame, October, was set up to bring that before the board, have the discussion such that any potential changes or amendments could be adequately communicated to employees at that time. As indicated in the memo, The county has 11.5 holidays that are in the policy. Both Christmas and New Year's fall on a Monday. Some years those holidays have been on Saturdays or Sundays, so this year they're on a Monday. And so really the question is just to engage in the discussion, whether there's any interest in the board at pursuing any of those alternatives at this time. Again, a little different situation this year as the holidays fall on a Monday, and that's when they're observed. So with that, I'd take any questions or comments and how the board would like to proceed.
Thanks, Gary. Appreciate you bringing this up so we can kind of make a plan accordingly and allow others to make any vacation plans or traveling plans. Is there any questions on the memo, commissioners? It looks like in the history there in the past, I think it was 2018, it fell on a Monday. There was no additional days offered. They did include $1,000 bonus. Something to consider is that first Tuesday after the new year, it would be the 2nd, which would be our meeting. So if we did offer any additional days, we would have to also, by resolution, move our meeting like we did on July 4th. So it's just something to consider. Any discussion on additional holidays or bonus?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Slaughter.
in the past, we have, as speaking as a former employee, we have had commissions that have approved additional days. And from my perspective and from what I have seen from the other employees who were involved at that time, the time off around those holidays with their families means an awful lot to them. The bonuses are nice. I'm not as much of a bonus fan, but what I would propose would be that we would give an additional holiday for the employees on the Friday prior to Christmas, which would give them a 4-day weekend. And then I would propose that on the Friday prior to the 1st of January, we would allow our elected officials and department heads to staff their offices appropriately, yet give a half-day's vacation to their employees so that they could potentially use that half day. The problem we've got on that day is obviously the last day of the month. We typically have a lot of people who are coming in to do transactions, specifically in the clerk's and treasurer's office. So I think we definitely want to have staffing for that, but I would like to see our staff awarded for all that they have done for us this year by having those additional holidays set for them.
Okay, so if I understood you right, you're talking a full day on the 22nd and then a half day as staff sees fit on the 29th.
Yes, sir.
Any other discussion, commissioners?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Jones?
Commissioner Slaughter, so that half day at the end of the month, does that put too much of a crunch on everybody or?
I think the way we've handled it in the past, Commissioner Jones, when that has taken place, is our elected officials know pretty much what their needs are for the end of the month. So let's say in the treasurer's office, Treasurer Cowan could potentially have half of his staff work that day. And what I used to do is I would have the staff have pizza or something of that nature. So if I had 5 members of my staff be there, they would be there all day. And then half of the staff could take that off. And then if those staff members were there, they would be able to take a half day at some time in the future, in the near future, so that they would be able to be awarded that they would be able to take a day in the future and would be awarded with that also.
Mr. Chairman, what Commissioner Slaughter is referring to is really kind of a floating holiday concept for half-day floating holiday concept. So some people would have to work that day and others take it off at some other time, generally within the fiscal year. So as we have done with Columbus Day and the other floating holiday that's been recognized.
So in that chart that you provided, Gary, I think it was fiscal year 20 and 21. It looks like they did similar to that. It was a floating holiday to be used on, at that time it was Tuesday, but December 31st or used by the end of March. The reason for the time frame on that, can you explain that or?
I,
is
I
there a
don't,
need for
I'm
that?
not sure what the significance of March is. I mean, I think the importance would just be within the fiscal year, so I'm not sure what the important.
Mr. Chairman, that was what I was referring to. I remember that specifically, that it had to be used sooner than through the end of the fiscal year.
Yeah,
So we could put that type of provision in if we felt it, but using it through the end of the fiscal year would be fine also.
Any other additional comments?
Mr. Chairman, I would make that in the form of a motion.
So we do have a motion to authorize a full day holiday on December 22nd. Yes. As well as a floating holiday, half-day holiday on the 29th to be utilized as department heads and elected officials see fit, of which that floating holiday needs to be utilized by the end of the fiscal year. Is that fair?
Correct.
That motion is made by Commissioner Slaughter. Is there a second?
I would second that.
A second by Commissioner Toman. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Richards?
can I get just some enlightenment of what's that's going to cost?
Yeah, I can run an actual total cost for you, certainly by the next meeting. In addition, those would need to be approved in a resolution. So if the board was of a mind to do that, I could certainly get an actual cost per day based on our employment, and we'd have to make some reasonable assumptions as to who would use the floating holiday. Obviously, not everyone does, but I could give you a certain cost and have a resolution prepared to that effect if the board was acceptable with the cost.
So perhaps the motion is to have staff prepare and move forward as such, and then we will make the official approval by resolution once it's prepared.
I would amend to that.
Okay, you good with that second, Mary? Yeah. Any other additional discussion? Hearing none, all is in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous. Thanks, Gary. We appreciate it. Moving right along, we are about 10 minutes ahead of schedule. And I believe we've got everyone here ready to go. So if everyone's good with that, we will move forward with discussion and approval of working with Fairfield and Woods PC on the RMP comments. We've got Mr. Bingham, Land Use Director, with us this morning. And good morning, Eric.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I would like to also acknowledge that Danielle Betancourt is also online with Fairfield and Woods.
Morning, Danielle. Sorry, I didn't look up.
That's okay. I hadn't put my video on yet. Good morning, commissioners.
So thank you, Mr. Chairman. You may have heard. Turn this around. There we go. Call this RMP. So we are here today to discuss the comments that I've been working on and drafting, and then we have a letter of engagement to continue working with Fairfield and Woods. That's what I'm here today to ask for approval, is to continue working with Fairfield and Woods with the resource management plan comments. As I'm going through and evaluating the document, they definitely found some things. I have forwarded some of the things that we have found working with Mr. De Leon, going through legal review. Definitely found some processes that have been violated from the Bureau of Land Management. Just take, for instance, in our letter a few weeks ago regarding the notice requirements on the ACECs. And one of the big ones we have is obviously the consistency review with the resource management plan in our federal lands and resource plan that was not identified in the document. And one way we can even see this is in alternative B that they are proposing, where we are in our own resource plan stating that we are opposed to broad scale ACECs. And as we see in the document, that's what we see in alternative B, the spreading of these. One thing, in addition to that is the right-of-way maps that we've seen that they have identified. There was a meeting that Commissioner Jones, federal committee, legislative committee that he testified in, where the Bureau of Land Management had made some comments that they would not put right-of-ways in checkerboard. Well, if you look at the alternative B map, it clearly shows there is right-of-way exclusion areas in checkerboard, and what implications and negative effects that will have on those private property owners.
So we're finding that. So in going through these, the OHV things, I've been reviewing those with the OHV and the travel management plan, there are things that are in the document that are putting closures on linear disturbance areas, which they were supposed to have removed from the plan and they haven't. They have an option to remove a travel management plan from the resource management plan, but there are certain things that they need to put in the document explaining that, and that is not in the document. So just additional things that I'm finding throughout that. Also, in the consistency review, they're supposed to explain when things aren't compatible with our land use plans, and that's not in the document. 2002 comprehensive plan. In addition to the federal plan, we have a comprehensive plan that encourages growth and development to continue in locations that contribute to the social well-being of county residents. Well, this document does not do that. It reduces employment in the oil and gas field by 56% and in drilling. So it will have a huge detrimental effect on our economy, which does not comply with our 2002 Sweetwater County Comprehensive Plan. So, Mr. Chairman, I have Danielle Bencourt online, who is the attorney for Coalition of Local Governments. And one thing I'd like to discuss today is to have her help us move forward with comments for the county. One thing I would like clarified today is, does the county have the desire to do its own separate comments or join the comments with the Coalition of Governments, local governments, as we are a member? So that's what I'm here today, is to get those answers moving forward, just so that I know we're doing things according to the way the commissioners would like them to. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll open it up.
Thanks, Eric. Yeah, so Eric and I had a brief discussion about, trying to sort through, obviously, the document and the small window of time that's been allotted. And obviously, as you all know, being a member of the CLG, we've got Danielle working on comments as well. And so I think the attempt was to see if, with her expertise, if some assistance could be provided. Obviously, the consistency review is something we're trying to hone in on as well. But moving forward, is that through the CLG? Is that separate from the CLG? And as Eric just stated, are we wanting to stand alone or stand in, combination with the CLG's response and how that might look? So I thought it was a good discussion that we should have this morning. I personally think, we need to take our own stance on it as well, whether that's, I would assume, going to be similar to the CLG's, but I think it's certainly most affected here in Sweetwater for the time being. And so we ought to come out in full force with that. But Eric's looking for some direction, so I would open it up for that and see what kind of feedback you all might have.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Jones.
So I have a question, and Danielle, maybe you answer this. I'm not really sure, but should we do both? I guess. I mean, I guess the way I look at this thing is, this whole process has been kind of like chasing a squirrel in a tree. And I don't really, they present a document, then they're going to pull stuff out on the Raptors, and they're going to pull stuff out on OHV. We don't really know what direction we're going. I don't. So is there a benefit to commenting in both, or is one preferred?
Yes, I'll add to that. And I think there's definitely the benefit of having comments come from both. I think the coalition's comments and Sweetwater County comments will be, obviously pretty consistent and similar. But I think as a county, I think it would behoove you to also have your own independent letter because of how impacted Sweetwater County will be, both economically and just through, recreation, oil and gas, transmission, kind of the whole gambit, everything, renewable energy, and the like. And I think it would be very beneficial for both to comment and for Sweetwater County just to specifically point out in their land use plans where the inconsistencies are, and have, those specifics in the letter. Whereas I think, in the coalition letter, it will hit those as well, but maybe more on a broader scale, and hitting some of the other county plans. And this way you could also focus specifically just for Sweetwater County.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Tillman.
if I could just give a historical perspective, and Daniel, maybe you can help me. We've commented on the Lander, the Pinedale, the Vernal, the Kimmer, the Rollins. We've commented on all of those plans, and all of those plans, I believe some of the counties did comment separately, but they did it through the coalition with the help of the FNRPA money that came to the coalition. I just see if Danielle feels that she could provide that support separately without having to do a separate funding mechanism, because we're already getting FNRPA money through CLG. I'd hate to see the county have to spend their own money on this, or to have to write a separate FNRPA request, and you cannot get reimbursed on FNRPA until it's been approved. So we could incur some additional expense before we could ever get a FNRPA approved to help reimburse the county. So for that reason, I would say it should stay under CLG if Danielle feels that she can respond to the county separately as well as to the CLG. That's the question, I guess.
Yes, I can respond to that. And I can agree, Mary, that has been done in the past where as members of the CLG and having those FNRPA funds, we have also done separate letters that support the comments of CLG or add more emphasis to the comments for the members themselves, and it all falls under that same FNRPA grant. So that's entirely possible and has been done before.
Because of the timing, I think that's the best approach to take. We can request additional funding for FNRPA if we start getting to the end of our allocation for CLG, but to me, that's the cleanest way to do it, and the way it's been done with 5 other RMPs. And that does not limit us. I mean, through all of these processes, any of us have access to Danielle at almost any time. Is that fair to tell you that, Danielle?
Yes, I mean, I think that is fair, and in the sense of, you know, as members of the CLG and the work we do as a whole, as a group, in drafting comments and working with each individual county and as their cooperating agencies and the like through all those federal plans. So yes.
Well, and the good thing is staying with Fairfield Woods and with Danielle is that she has the 12 years of experience with the CLG on all of these plans that we've done up to this point in time. And Connie Brooks, I think, is still in the shadows guiding and helping you, I hope.
Yeah, she's still in the shadows. She's still on a very limited basis, but definitely around.
Mr. Chairman, if I could.
Commissioner Slaughter.
I was party to this phone call that we had last week that Eric had directed. And in my estimation, what Eric was asking was whether it would be appropriate to have Danielle respond directly for the county, in addition to the comments that she's making for the CLG. I believe after that conversation with her and what we came up with, that it is in our best interest to have her represent the county in addition to the CLG. If we have to fund that as a county, I believe it's something that we need to do. This, as we've stated many times, could be something that would affect every person in Sweetwater County along with our way of life. And so if we have additional expenditures that we have to do with respect to that, and we can have better representation through hiring Danielle to do it specifically for the county, I believe we would be better off in doing that.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Richards.
I want to echo Commissioner Slaughter's sentiments there. We're asking a lot of our land use director, and I think there are places where he may need direct engagement with Ms. Bedencourt, not through the CLG. And I'm not afraid of spending money to fight this, because some of the estimates I've seen are upwards of $100 million in lost revenue over the next 10 years. And if throwing, and I hate, sorry to use that word, if throwing money at the situation right now helps us prevent that, that I'm willing to throw some money at that situation. We have legislative funding line items in our budget somewhere, and they're there for a reason. And I think this is it, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think all of us probably feel the same way, that the confusion was because we spend what we do through the CLG is, does Danielle have that ability to help us out, or is she focused on responding for the entire CLG, and how does that differ from us? And so, I too, we got to protect what's right here. We've got, talented people between Eric and our legal team. But obviously this is in her wheelhouse. She comments, pretty much every meeting we have ratification, comments moving forward. So I support it. I just want to make sure we're not, I don't know if double dipping is the right word, but if we're already paying a service that includes this, then there's no sense in engaging an outside service. But I think that's part of the reason that Eric was bringing it forward. And I'm not sure I have a clarification on that yet. I think, but I'm not sure.
Danielle, do you have a comment on that as far as having to bill separately and whatever they're talking about?
Right. I mean, I guess it would depend on how you guys want to frame it, and maybe we need to bring it up to the coalition as well. But when I do comments for various entities or people who have the same position, but are commenting on the same, same plan or same project, I wouldn't say there would be double dipping in the sense that if I'm developing something for somebody else, I use it and don't charge somebody else for that same work that I already just did. If that makes sense. But I think what Mary was saying and what has been done in the past is that we've also, as members, since you already pay into the coalition, we help draft individual letters for members as well through the coalition that can be covered by whatever grants that are being used for those projects. Is that providing any more clarity?
Chairman, I guess I gotta ask Eric what you'd like to see us do here.
And I think what Danielle is stating is there's something above and beyond that's what we could be potentially billed for.
Right.
And that is something I am seeking. I've spoken with Clerk Lane about this, and also Mr. De Leon. There is an account set up in the budget for, I believe it's professional services, John, that has around $100,000 in it right now. That balance, I believe that's used for Board of Equalization is where some of that is used for. And so we do have an account set up for that. So what I'm looking for is when there's things that I'm still working on comments and going through the document, is having that ability to be able to reach out to her. And if there are additional costs incurred, that would be okay.
Well, Danielle, you may need to hire additional consultants to assist with certain pieces of it. That certainly would be additional, maybe.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, potentially, but I think maybe internally, and you guys may have this information would be the economic and the economic impact that it's going to have on the county. And I don't know if you guys are already working through that or have somebody looking at that issue. And that's something we would definitely want to have included, if at all possible, within the time frame that we have. I know it's not a big time frame, and I think what we heard was UW may be doing some analysis, but it might be more statewide as opposed to just specific to Sweetwater County.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Richards.
what I'd like to see out of this is that we do empower our land use director to have the discretion to engage additional services if he feels the need to. I don't want him to have to come back to us and say, I found there's $10,000 worth of work that the CLG might not cover and have to wait 2 weeks to get approval to do that. I'd like to empower him to be able to expend some money now if he sees fit, because this is a moving target and the deadlines are coming up, and I'd really like Eric to have the ability to do this right without being hamstrung by us.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, we have 3 weeks before our next meeting, and that next meeting is it before the comments are due. So
Well, Danielle and Eric, I think if you see somebody you can engage to help us speed some of these comments, I think that's what Commissioner Richards is saying, do it.
Okay.
Sooner rather than later, either one of you, in coordination, I suppose.
But I also think that the coalition would be behind Danielle and focusing in on Sweetwater. And I think she brings up a good point with trying to hone in on the local socioeconomic,
Yeah.
effects. And, maybe we highlight that and, utilize the state on more of the response, but we participate in all these between the WCCA, the CLG. I mean, this is kind of why we participate. That's what they're there for. When things hit close to home, that, we want to act out and respond to those. And, going through and finding the inconsistencies of the plan. I think that was kind of the angle we took rather than just, the feet stomping that we've been speaking about and trying to hone in on what went wrong with their approach. So, I'm in support of that. I'm kind of, whatever it takes, let's make it happen. We're down to basically a month and I think it's appropriate and I think taxpayers would support that. So.
Well, Mr. Chairman, as a result of that workshop we had with the governor's office and WCCA last week, though, they are considering using FNRPA money to hire someone to do the consistency reviews on all of the plans that are affected by this RMP. So I don't know, Daniel, you might want to follow up with Nolan Rapp and see if they're moving forward on that, or if you have some other leads. We have a little bit of time because the consistency review doesn't come till after we can point out some things, but the consistency review is after the comment period when they do the governor's consistency.
Right. Mr. Chairman, I just think it's vitally important that we protect our standing in the next 3 weeks. And while we are a member of CLG, 95% of this plan is in Sweetwater County, and we need to have our name on our comments directly and protect our position here, because CLG is important. I don't argue how important CLG is, but this is a Sweetwater County issue, and CLG's interests aren't always directly aligned. And I want our land use director to have his hands uncuffed so he can respond in any way he sees fit over the next few weeks.
I agree 100% with Commissioner Richards.
I do as well. And that was the reason I asked the question if we wanted to go to both. I mean, concern I have is that we miss on turning a single stone and we just can't take that chance. And, this one is not, this RMP is not going like most land use plans have historically. So, I don't think we can look at things and say, well, this is what we've always done and this is what's worked in the past. That's great to rely on that, but we're playing by different rules and I don't think we even really know all of the rules.
I think I read an article, I can't remember who produced it, but it was about seeking out this engagement letter with Fairfield and Woods to rewrite our land use plan, and that is not at all what we're doing here. That has been established and approved. This is more to utilize resources such as those we already have with Fairfield through the CLG to find the inconsistencies and what doesn't match between the two plans. And so I know there's a lot of confusion. A lot of that's because, there hasn't been a lot of explanation. It's under tight timelines, but I think most importantly, Sweetwater is trying to do whatever it takes to fight back and to do so effectively by that timeline. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I agree with Commissioner Jones. This plan, and Danielle will agree too, we've always had to focus in the past on a preferred alternative that was close to something we could live with and something that had been analyzed through the cooperative process, whereas this one has taken the far end extreme. And so really it leaves all 4 alternatives open for discussion because we don't know which ones they're going to pick and choose from any of those 4 alternatives. Danielle, do you want to comment on that a little bit?
Yeah, I agree. I agree both with Commissioner Jones and Commissioner Tillman on this too. This is a unique situation. This is not what we've ever seen in the past, where, a bookend is kind of being chosen as a preferred, and it's, I think it's been a shock to everybody and everybody who's been doing land use planning processes for a long time, especially at the federal level. So it's definitely very unheard of. It's something new. I don't know if it helps. You're not alone. It's happening in a plan in Colorado as well. But it's not what we want to see become the norm. And it's not what, cooperating agencies and working cooperatively with the federal government is supposed to look like. So.
Are you okay with us doing a separate letter of engagement that would cover additional above and beyond type of work that you would be doing with Eric to help develop our letter?
Yes, I am completely okay with that. And I had talked to Eric about this as well previously. And we may not have to do an additional engagement letter based off of the one that we previously already had. In which our firm and Connie Brooks helped with your federal land use plan. Process was a year ago now. That can continue forward just as long as something is made to the firm in writing that you would like us to proceed on helping with this as well.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Richards.
I think a previous engagement letter probably covers it. Do we need to have a motion to authorize a specific maximum expenditure for our land use department in seeking outside professional help? And if so, what do we know what's available in that professional services budget line item?
Don't. Thought my.
Daniel, how much quick money do you need? It's got above and beyond CLG is.
Well, I mean, but the reality is she's got a month. She's going to continue to work, on behalf of CLG and us. And so I think more or less, there's the trust in the relationship there, certainly more in that one than the BLM. And, we're authorizing Eric to use as he sees fit, and we'll continue to support that through the current engagement letter that's in place.
Not to exceed our budget for the litigation fund, I guess, because we can't spend more than what we have.
Right.
I can see
can't
where you
imagine
need
it
to do
being
some
that
fat, I can
significant,
see where we should get somebody on the economic stuff for the county specifically. Something like Mark Cotton and Wally had done in showing all the mineral income specifically.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioner Tillman, so I'm actually supposed to meet with Mr. Davis today, so we will discuss that.
Mr. Chairman, would just a simple motion to authorize Director Bingham to expend appropriate funds as he sees fit out of the professional services budget in preparation of a response to the Rock Springs RMP be in order? Would that cover it?
I think so, through the use of the, continued engagement letter with Fairfield and Woods.
I would make that motion then.
We have a motion by Commissioner Richards. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Jones. Any further discussion? I guess let us know, Eric. I mean, we'll finish the action here, but because we only have one more meeting to go, if there's anything we need to do, to help support you, whether that's a special meeting or, approval of anything, let us know. We can make that happen. But I mean, basically we got one more to go and that's it. So.
Mr. Chairman, that was one point I was going to bring up is we may have to do some sort of workshop or something just because of how tight a frame it is. So I want to make sure when we do get a draft of comments prepared that you're reviewing them so that we can make sure that it's in line with, in addition, if there's any comments that you have, feel free to reach out to me so that we're including those, the things we're missing. So I'll make sure I keep everyone in the loop as we're proceeding, but I do feel that we're probably going to come to that. And I know that there's notification requirements and such. I believe it's 24 hours, Clerk Lane, for a special meeting. 8 hours. So if, but I mean, I would probably would know further in advance, but I would much appreciate it if moving forward, we have those options.
Okay. Great. Any other comments, discussion?
You
Danielle,
okay? Yeah, Daniel.
did you have anything you wanted to add for Chairman Tillman over here?
No. Don't get carried away here.
No, I'm okay. And I when I spoke to Eric about this too, we're working to get drafts going and to the commissioners early, so you can see them in order to be able to approve them before the due date.
We appreciate you being here today. Nice to put a face to your name and meet you virtually, but appreciate your insight on this. And it sounds like we'll continue working forward together for the next month on providing a response.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. See you Tuesday at CLG.
Yes, I'll see you Tuesday.
With no other comments or discussion, we do have a motion and a second on the table. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous. Hopefully that helps, Eric.
Yes, it does.
Think
Thank you,
we
Mr.
got
Chairman.
That worked out along with this, also having a response from Sweetwater County. So
Appreciate Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Thank you.
thanks, Eric. Up next, we are just about 10 minutes behind. Anyone need a break real quick before we get in? The final item is the collaborative for the consultant review. It is slated for 45 minutes. We need a break.
I have my cookie, double chocolate.
How much coffee have you had? I'm wondering. You good?
Didn't get that in Colorado, did you?
Huh?
Mr. Davis?
Cookie in Colorado, did you?
I don't know, Ashley, it has Colorado ingredients.
Mr. Chairman, Dave Davis, the Sweetwater County Assessor. Just, I want to thank you for considering the additional time off for the employees. At the holidays, it's always a great benefit to them and they all really appreciate it. But as you go through and think about what you're willing to do, because Christmas falls on a Monday and we're talking about the Friday before, we are going to have people actually trying to travel on Christmas if they don't have additional time off to come back. So they wouldn't be able to spend time with their families if they were traveling out of town. So if you may consider just another option, maybe doing, the day and a half time off, just do it all as a floating holiday. And then the employees that are better off taking it the Friday before, they could do it that way as long as the office could be staffed. Or the ones that wanted to take it the day after Christmas, so they could spend the full day of Christmas with their family out of town and then potentially travel on the next day after Christmas. If we give a little flexibility, I think you'll have more employees able to take a better advantage of that. But again, just for your consideration, and again, the employees are always grateful when this time comes around and you're willing to actually give them just a little bit of a bonus time off so they can spend time with their families. But just for your consideration, thank you.
Very good. Thanks, Dave. Appreciate that.
Mr. Chairman, I think that's a great idea. Somebody may want to spend a little more time at Christmas and couldn't care less about the New Year's Eve holiday. And if they can coordinate that with their department head or elected official, I'm more than happy to do that.
Yeah, I agree. I think we can give some flexibility there. The bigger one is just because of the New Year's falling on the 2nd and our Tuesday meeting and all that, but we can work through that. So we'll come up with a few different drafts. I think everyone's probably in agreement and take action with the resolution. Good. All right. So it sounds like we're skipping the break. And up next, we've got the collaborative consultant review with consultant Jessica Western with us today. And we are right on time for you. So
You are. Thank you very much.
morning and
Mr.
thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Lovely drive from Sheridan. Good morning. My name is Jessica Western and Commissioner Slaughter asked me to come and talk to you about the possibility of a collaborative. And I have with me a handout that I'd like to give you.
Thanks very much.
So I gather that the topic would be Flaming Gorge, the recreation area, and I believe in particular the marina that is obviously very important to the community. I don't have all the information, so if I misspeak, please correct me. But I think what you like to do is look at the possibility of creating a collaborative that would tackle that subject and maybe other subjects as well. And what would it take to create that collaborative? And step number one would be for me, if I'm engaged to do this, that I would conduct some interviews with people who are involved with this to find out what are the issues that people want to tackle. What kind of process do they think would help and get them to some resolution? And who should be involved? I would report that back to you as a result of those interviews. And then I would recommend creating something like a small committee to create that process and decide what it's going to look like. And also start drafting a charter. And the charter would provide the rules of the game, if you will, of how this process would work. The ultimate outcome of that collaborative would be to provide the county commissioners with recommendations, but also provide recommendations to the Forest Service and any other decision makers regarding those particular issues. So I'll just leave it at that and ask, what questions do you have for me?
Dr. Western, Mr. Chairman, if I might.
Go ahead.
I think I'm less interested in being specific about the marina.
Okay.
And more interested in community access points throughout the northern part of Ashley National Forest and the Flaming Gorge.
Okay.
A tour around the gorge and then into the southern parts of Ashley National Forest that exist in Utah. It's really obvious that a lot of money is being spent on the Utah side. So I think our interest isn't so much in a specific marina.
Okay.
It's in the Flaming Gorge
Okay.
area as a whole and figuring out a way that we can promote it for the entire community's use and access and signage and all those things. rather
Okay.
than just one specific.
Yeah, that's a larger topic. I just drove out to the marina. I can see what you're talking about. Do you mean sort of having a collaborative to discuss the Flaming Gorge Recreation Plan? And the northern part of that plan?
Right. Commissioner Slaughter can probably speak to this better, but my understanding is our goal was to have a collaborative to basically promote the Flaming Gorge Recreation Area and it's part of the Ashley National Forest as a whole. We have Firehole on this side.
Yeah.
Yes, there is the marina on the other side, but there's other access points all the way around. And if the Forest Service was focused on on the northern part, I think it would bring a lot more recreation into our area, not just through one specific marina, but Firehole, especially Firehole is a huge gym in our
Yeah.
community, but it's been way underutilized, way undertaken care of. And my understanding of the idea of a collaborative was a tool to use to help Ashley National Forest know where to direct their resources and that,
Okay.
yes, we do want to, we want them to direct some of those resources up here.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay. Thank you.
Mr.
Thank you.
Chairman, if I can. Ms. Western, I'm not sure where you got the impression that we were looking specifically at the marina. We did not have that conversation. Obviously, that's a part of what we've been talking about. Let me go back just a few steps. Because we've discussed this a little bit on the phone, but just to lay the groundwork for how this came about. I have just started working within the CLG and have been participating in those meetings for the last several months.
Right.
The impression that I got from the first several meetings was that there has been a desire within that coalition to potentially work towards a collaborative to help with the Ashley National Forest Plan, which obviously we're getting close to the resolution of that plan,
Right.
but also then working towards the Flaming Gorge National Recreation Plan, which will be coming in the future. So apparently there has been no one who's been willing to take the lead on that, even though everybody has felt like it has been a good idea.
Okay.
I volunteered with information from Richard Stem,
Right.
basically that it would be of huge benefit, he felt, to us in developing this plan and a collaborative, both in performing functions for the residents here, but also in obtaining funding to do some of those things. By forming a collaborative, he felt like it would open up a lot of funding potentially. And in conversations that I've had with the Ashley, they agree. They believe that there's funding available there. So my intent in having you here today was to come down and help us start from the ground up. Let us know what you as a consultant can do
Right.
to help us form this collaborative to do this. Because we've had information and we had Richard Stem present to us on what he believed were the benefits of doing this. He then recommended that the next step would be to hire a consultant to develop the plan itself. Looks like what you've done here in Sublette County is basically the matrix we would want to look at.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously in forming a committee, a steering committee, doing that, establishing our objectives then would be a big thing. Establishing who we felt would be a critical party to the collaborative and moving forward as we start. There's been a lot of conversation about who should be a part of this collaborative. We haven't gotten anywhere near that point yet. There are a lot of entities that I think can be very beneficial in this collaborative, but my belief is, and in talking with Richard and my, with some exception with the CLG, the belief is that if we were to start smaller, it's a little bit easier to grow out.
Yeah.
Because a smaller group is going to have a different set of criteria that they want to work forward with than what a larger group may have.
Yeah.
You know, there's been some suggestion that we bring in Uena County, that we bring in Daggett County. We may not want to do that at this
Right.
point in time. We as a commission may want to start with a smaller collaborative working, as Commissioner Richards talked about, on the northern part of the Ashley Forest here in Sweetwater County. So the direction from you on getting that established and what benefit that we can receive from that is really what I'm looking for, what I was
Yeah.
looking for in bringing you here to see, you know, if we do something like this, we want to make sure we do it right.
Right.
I think from the understanding that I've had from several people, there have been many collaboratives that have been started, and because they have not been established correctly, they don't work very well. The ones that have been established well have been very successful. We want to be very successful with that, and that's why we want you to be able to help us start with that foundation that will help us do that.
Okay. Thank you very much for all this clarification. And I apologize why I brought up that marinas, because another party had asked me to facilitate a process just around that marina. So I thought this was very much tied into that. I apologize. Never mind. This is about the northern area, and I really appreciate that approach. And I commend you for that approach as well. And I think Sublette County, and I've also done the same thing in Lincoln County around Grays River, and that was also successful. And yes, I agree, starting it up right is the way to go. So starting it up right would be for me to have more information on this, have conversations with you, other people that you recommend that I talk to, and then find out who would likely be helpful on a steering committee, create that steering committee, and then make final decisions about who should be part of this process. What is the process going to be? What are topics that are initially going to be addressed? There may be secondary issues as well, and then get it going. So, and what I would recommend and what I've done, well, I've done several runs with Sublette County, but at least allow me to facilitate this collaborative through the first process. And by that, I mean, setting up the collaborative steering committee, get the charter agreed on, tackle the topics, and wind up with recommendations that go to the county commissioners and other parties. So getting recommendations would be the final product of this collaborative, so that those recommendations can be acted on by other parties. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Slaughter.
One more question with respect to this. Obviously, we would want to know, having not done this before, how you would establish a contract with us for doing those services and what you would expect in a contract to move forward with us to establish this. So if you could kind of allude to how you have done this in the past.
Yeah.
And what you've done in establishing those relationships as far as a contract and in performance of those criteria.
So I can send you examples that I used with Sublette County, for example. But it's a contract that lays out, that describes basically what you've got in your handout. These are the things that I would do. It would be a little bit more complete, because I would add in there that I would complete the process through the creation of the first set of recommendations. I would have my cost estimate included in that. And then I would invoice the county on as particular items are completed.
So can you share some of the other collaboratives you've been working on? I mean, I know you said you can include the examples, but I think that's kind of what we were hoping to see by bringing you here today, and we
Okay.
appreciate you coming down. But this is a little bit of some new territory in regards to certainly Ashley National Forest and trying to, build upon any opportunities that may be there. And so I think we're looking for a sales pitch, so to speak, on what we're missing out on and what you can
Okay.
help us capitalize on.
Okay. The point of a collaborative is to leverage resources ultimately, to get complete information. So you have diverse people who represent diverse organizations who have diverse interests. You get those diverse interests around a table. You find out how everybody thinks about a particular issue. And you build consensus, and that would be my job, is to build the consensus among these different representatives to find out what are areas of agreement that we have. And the recommendations at the end of the day would have some of them, the majority, in my experience, the majority of the recommendations have full consensus. And it's not that people are voting, but we test for consensus. We find out how people feel about a recommendation, and I document that, and that goes as part of the final report. Some of them are not going to have full agreement. For example, you might wind up seeing a recommendation that doesn't have full support from everyone, but the commissioners really like it, and it's your decision. So you can act on it if you want to. So it's really to find out what is the level of consensus which each recommendation that is created by these different interests. So I would guide this group of people through that whole process as efficiently as possible, but also in a way that everybody can learn from each other. So at the end of the day, the recommendations are based on complete sets of information from all parties. What usually also winds up happening is that people get excited. They like it. It's wonderful to work together. It's wonderful to create collaborative outcomes. And as the result, very often a county may say, well, we're willing to support it with this. The forest is going to also support it with that. Maybe there's a recreation group that's absolutely in love with it, wants to help it as well with volunteers and other reasons. So there's a leveraging of resources that happens. And that is, in my experience, what usually happens. And it builds momentum for more collaborative action further down the road. Does that help?
It does, and I can reason with that, but I mean, we've got significant resources that we work with, on a pretty regular basis. We've got some in the audience with the outdoor recreation, folks, and travel and tourism. And, that's how some of the designations, I think it's the All-American Highway came about. I mean, so a lot of that's there, a lot of those relationships are there, but maybe the time isn't there, which is why we've obviously brought you in on someone that has experience and capitalizing on federal dollars and being able to, I guess, work towards that. So what is your experience outside of wrangling the herd, so to speak? I mean, going after some of that. Do you have experience with the Ashley National Forest? Do you have?
I have a lot of experience with the U.S. Forest Service.
Okay.
A little bit about my background. I am, my PhD is in natural resource management and public policy. That's what I've been teaching at the university for decades. And I am a forest ecologist and I'm a social psychologist. So I have been working with the Forest Service for, I think, 40 years now in various states. So I'm very familiar with the Forest Service. And I understand the regulations that they're working under, the laws that they're working under, what their capacities are, their decision-making processes. I know all that. So what I would bring as a facilitator is I would make it as possible for the Forest Service to give their all in this process.
Now we're getting into the meats and potatoes there.
Okay.
No, I appreciate
Yeah,
that. And I didn't,
no.
For that to come off offensive if it did.
No, that's
not
okay.
at all what I meant. I just,
Yeah.
we've been a part of, different meetings or committees that talk about all the good things, but nothing really, goes forward with it. And so we just want to ensure if we're going to take this step and this investment that, we can have an action plan. And I know there's more to it. And so from your perspective, it's kind of probably well, you tell me what you're after and then we can kind of make a plan. But from our perspective, it's what is that plan as we invest forward with you? And so
The other thing is that, if a forest supervisor gets a series of recommendations in front of her in this case. And they are fully consensus. All interested parties really support those recommendations. It's a bit of a slam dunk. I mean, if she doesn't act on them, well, that's going to be odd, let's say, at a minimum. But if she has all these people working together to create these recommendations and everybody supports them, then that's going to be really easy for a forest supervisor to act on. That's another one of the big reasons to have a collaborative. So for example, with the Sublette County, the Forest Service was involved, Game and Fish was involved, Conservation District was the convener of it, the county was involved. There were several NGOs that were also involved. And I think just about everything they discussed wound up being fully recommended by everyone. So that's easy for the Forest Service to then just act on. And it also helps in the long run. It actually helps with forest planning. It can be very more efficient as well. You were just talking about BLM. I have some thoughts on that, but I won't go there.
Yeah, and I think maybe some of your confusion is we had the situation at Buckboard come about and a lot of, constituent engagement and concerns on some of the different things that were going out there. And so as we're discussing it, then Ashley National Forest came and they were kind of, I guess, impressed with, our care, our vocal input on, what they were dealing with out there. And so it's kind of led for, we had to work together more and how do we go about doing that? And so Commissioner Slaughter's been trying to find the right path through that. And I just want to capitalize on any opportunity that's out there. And if there's a lot that we're not doing and, if it takes some facilitator expense to make that happen, I think the return on the investment could be a lot greater than that.
Yeah, not only that, but for the long term. I mean, initially you'll tackle this particular topic, but in the long run, I've also worked in Colorado and there was one county commissioner who absolutely hated collaboration, the whole word, the whole concept, just hated it. And he became a huge supporter of collaborative work. And he called it creating a table of trust, because you create a table of trust, not just with the Forest Service, but with all these entities. And it's a table you can keep coming back to. And it really helps federal agencies to have those. They can't create it themselves legally. So if a county or a conservation district is in the position to create that table of trust, there can be very long-term benefits to that.
And Mr. Chairman, speaking to that, just the little bit that this has been out in the news, I have received comments from several entities that they're very excited about this. Obviously the Forest Service themselves, but other entities that have diverse interests within the Flaming Gorge National Forest, within Ashley, and who want to participate.
Yeah.
As I said, I'm not sure that they will all be the ones that we want to involve, but it has created an excitement. And I think that's what it takes to get something like this off the ground, is that excitement. And I think we can capitalize on that potentially because it is there. And as we develop it, I think there will be more excitement. So, that's once again, trying to figure out how do we do this?
Yeah.
And getting that groundwork in place. We just want to make sure that that's established. And I know I've emphasized that previously, but I think there is an excitement. I think there's a really good opportunity here. And as I say, bringing you here to help us, I think can be a huge benefit. We obviously have to have someone who has the experience to help us and lead us in this endeavor. So, that's what we're trying to figure out. Are you that person and will you be that person who can lead us in this? I just, once again, I think it's something that would be a huge benefit for all of our constituency.
If you have more questions about my background or expertise, I've given you my card and I have a website. You can find my CV up there as well. But I really appreciate the clarification of what you're looking at, a large landscape. And that is going to create a lot of excitement I mean, for example, I've done a lot of work, 15 years worth of work with Game and Fish. They're going to be excited about this, for example. You know, other entities as well, as you've been hearing.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Richards.
Yeah, from my point of view, I look at the map of Ashley National Forest and maybe 15% of the forest is in Wyoming and it's totally neglected. I feel that it's totally neglected and has been. And I see travel and tourism and city parks in the audience and people are truly interested in this. It's not often people see something on our agenda that gets them to actually come. But I think there's an opportunity to focus on this. We have the best parts of Ashley National Forest in Sweetwater County.
It's gorgeous.
But again, it's neglected. Travel and
Yeah.
tourism took us on a bus tour all the way around the gorge, and it's just shocking how beautiful
Yeah.
the amenities on the southern side are, and it just highlights how neglected our side. So that's what I like to see out of this is some focus on the good part of Ashley National Forest.
Well, so I just went to this buckboard marina. And I can see what you're talking about. I can really see it. It needs some TLC big time. So I'd love to be part of that process. If I can help in any way, I'd be tickled pink.
Any other comments, questions, commissioners? So I guess, you know, if moving forward, what would you need from us to provide some form of a proposal, cost breakdown, you know, us to identify kind of what our main goals and objectives would be, and then you can kind of provide feedback from there.
I think what I'd like to do is if you'd like to have that, I'd like to call Commissioner Slaughter. And then after that, I will create a cost estimate and a proposal and send it to Commissioner Slaughter to be shared with all of you. And then I'll await the outcome. If you move forward, the first thing, like I said, I would like to do is do some interviews and start getting more information. And then I guess one question I have for you, Mr. Chairman, is what is your timeline? Do you have a timeline? What's on your mind there?
I don't know that we do.
No, Mr. Chairman, from my standpoint, in leading this, basically leading this effort, my goal was to try and kind of have something in place for the spring.
Okay,
So I don't think this is something we need to establish today. I
Okay.
don't think it has to be done between now and Christmas, but I think if we can work towards this and try and have something established where we can really try and hit this hard in the spring, I think that would be what I had anticipated that we would try and move forward with. I'm not sure about the other commissioners, but that was kind of what I envisioned because it's going to take some time to put all of this in place. And I think we don't want to rush it. Once again, I think we want to have all of that basis in place for who we want to talk to, how we want to work forward with it and try and hit this then, whether it be March or around that time of the year would have been my anticipation.
one recommendation regarding timing is you don't want to do this during the summer because people are going to be out in the field, especially federal agency, county agencies, don't even try. And the other thing is I find that usually, going through all these meetings and going through the process, keeping it as close together as possible, keeps momentum going, keeps everything in everybody's memories and creates more sense of success and fulfillment because there are actions that come out of it, recommendations that come out of it efficiently. So I would recommend that if you decide to move forward on this, I would like to do those interviews soon. And I would like to work on creating that steering committee sooner rather than later. And then if it moves forward, maybe start having meetings in February, even something to think about. I know that's pretty soon, and then after, if it did start in February, I'd want to keep it trucking to keep it as efficient as possible.
And Mr. Chairman, once again, if I could, looking at the outline that you basically presented for us here, you would propose 4 meetings. You're talking about potentially starting in February. How often you say you want to keep them moving? How long would it take us to do, in your opinion, the 4 meetings and try and get this in place?
Well,
We started in February.
These were not 4 meetings. These were 9 meetings.
9, but it was on 4 different stages, it looked like.
Yeah, there are 4
And then
different
you had-
stages, 9
and you had
meetings.
several meetings in each of those stages, so.
I don't know yet, to be honest.
Okay.
That's what the interviews are going to be about, for me to have an idea of what exactly are we talking about? Is the whole landscape in one shot too big? Do we need to maybe parcel it out? Maybe not. I need a little bit more information to give you an idea on that.
Sure, thank you.
Sorry.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Toman.
Well, Sue Icoff, the supervisor, and Brian Wilson, the ranger in Manila, are very much in support of this because they know there's the federal funding. So that would be the idea of the timing, is to be able to fit into getting some of that federal funding through a collaborative faster than they could get it. The forest plan is going to be up for cooperative review in March, and they're trying to finalize that Ashley National Forest Plan by summer at some point.
Okay.
So it's kind of all coming together as, and during the planning stages and the public meetings with the Ashley National Forest, they had separate meetings with the stakeholder group, the
Yeah.
concessionaires, they had, different interest groups. And so there's that kind of information already available. There are tons of issues with the infrastructure,
Right.
with the campgrounds
Right.
and the marinas. I mean, that's the number one big expense, and I think a collaborative could help them get off a dead center with some of that stuff.
Okay.
So just my 2 cents.
Yeah, so, no, but that's helpful because you're right. Of course, there's already information out there. So I'd want to get my hands on that stuff as well.
Well, and we also have a Sweetwater County Outdoor Recreation Collaborative.
Oh,
And
wonderful.
Island's participating in it now, but it took them a year to get a charter. But there is a charter which maybe could be helpful in tweaking a charter for this one. It took a year to get that charter off a dead center. So hopefully we wouldn't have to get bogged down that long. So maybe we can cut and paste and steal from other groups and pulling together some of this stuff, because we do have travel and tourism. We have the snowmobilers and the off-road vehicle, the SWAT group, and we have the SCORE. So we have a lot of interest groups in the county that maybe our first job would be to identify key people that you could start interviewing that would represent that
That would be wonderful.
broad scope. And I know some of the people in the or in our coalition are interested in being members of it too, but it might as we expand later or something.
Well, we'll put everyone on the list, and then committee will decide, the steering committee can decide who needs to be on it right now. I have a question for you, Commissioner Toman. Is all the funding going to be federal for this process?
Sue Icoff said they may have some funding. We can probably get FNRPA funding,
Yeah.
either through the coalition or directly through the county. We can probably get the governor's federal natural resource policy account if we write a request to the governor. So we can probably get some funding to help.
You don't, the federal agency cannot pay for the entire process.
No, they won't. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just checking. Yeah, okay.
Any other comments, questions, commissioners?
Well, maybe our first step would be to draft a letter of request of FNRPA to ask to help start a collaborative, but we need some idea of a dollar amount and kind of key things.
I will call Commissioner Slaughter very soon, and I will get that to you very soon.
Sounds good. Well, Dr. Western, we appreciate you traveling down and bringing forth some information. Sounds like you'll be in touch with Commissioner Slaughter. He enjoys a phone call as much as Commissioner Toman enjoys a microphone, so that'll be good. And, anything we can do to get more information to you to be able to provide a proposal, we'll look forward to working together and see where it goes from here.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks very much. Yeah, probably come on up, Mark, if you don't mind.
Mark Lyon, I'm one of the steering committee members on SCORC, along with Commissioner and along with Janessa and along with Eric. And so there's quite a few of us that are involved with this, but I was able to work with Jessica in 2017 during the governor's task force on outdoor recreation. And so I can attest to how quickly she makes things kind of move and how she can keep things on point. And so that was quite the group to work with, and she was part of that. So my beard was much shorter back then. But yeah, so. just
And
wanted
not
to-
as white either, I'll bet.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. All right, commissioners. Well, we are ahead of schedule, if you can believe that.
Can I ask a question of
Of
Janessa?
course. Here we
So
go.
much for being ahead of schedule.
Yeah. Commissioner Tillman.
How are your comments coming for the RMP? How are your comments coming along for the RMP? Thank you, thank you. Thank you.
All right, commissioners, busy agenda, lots accomplished today. Appreciate everyone's expertise, and with no further business, this meeting is adjourned.